everyone to the June 17th City Council meeting. Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman
Here.
Alderman Glad.
Here.
Alderman Blackshear.
Here.
Alderman Bessie. Alderman Davis.
Here.
Alderman Cook.
Here.
Alderman Miller. Here.
Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on the agenda is the public comment portion. This public comment portion is for the items that are not on the agenda this evening. If this is regarding any items on the agenda, we ask that you wait until that item is up later on the agenda, okay? At this time, I'm going to call on Nancy. Can you please step up to the podium, and if you could state your name and address for public record.
Nancy.
Oh,
Which Nancy's that?
No, it's, they're together.
This is a golf cart.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Nancy number one. Yeah.
Please state your name and address for public record.
I'll speak, Nancy.
There you go.
My name is Jim Keith. I'm a resident, firefighter here in town. Some of you know me. 2 years ago, Nancy presented that the mixed-use license should have a little more expansion in roads in the city of McHenry, not only to allow the golf carts and side-by-sides to get to certain businesses in town, but to draw a little more revenue for the city as far as people that live a little bit out of the district to buy the licensing for the golf carts and side-by-sides. It's been 2 years. We haven't heard anything. We're more than welcome to put together a task force or a study group on what roads are the best for this use. Right now, we're only asking for 4 major things, and that's allowing Green Street for golf carts, the Pearl Street Park area with 1 or 2 crossings over 120 for safety, of course, only at lights. Riverside Drive, the business district, would be good for the businesses and good for all of us. As well as we've had a lot of interest in the Lincoln Hills Liberty Trails area in the ways to get downtown from that area. We've had no arguments on a fee rating for the licensing, but at this time we're kind of open to what you would want as the board from us to increase the zones that the golf carts can be in, and we'd be happy to help.
Okay, thank you. Nancy, would you like to say anything?
I just wish that we could get some kind of help here.
Okay.
I know our golf carts are huge, especially the ones with the seat belts and, everything.
Sure.
So we're hoping.
All right, I got your cell number. I'll reach out to you tomorrow.
Yeah, and I didn't know who you were.
I am Wayne.
You're in
Excuse me? Yes, sir.
Is there some way you can turn the volume up? We can't hear anything from back here.
Is that better?
Yes.
Good? Okay. All right, thank you. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Thank you, Nancy. Is there anyone for public comment that are items that are not on the agenda this evening? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, items 5A through 5G. Is there any items that would like to be pulled for separate consideration, Council? See none, I'm looking for a motion to approve 5A through 5G. Alderman Miller?
I'll make the motion to approve 5A through 5G on the consent agenda, please.
Thank you. Second? Alderman McClatchy?
I'll second.
Thank you. Discussion on any of these items? None? Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Miller.
Yes.
Alderman Blackshear.
Yes.
Alderman Santi.
Yes.
Alderman Glad.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bessie.
Yes.
Alderman Davis.
Yes.
Alderman Cook.
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 6A, is an annual MS4 facilities report. Looking for a motion to accept the MS4 update, which will specify the city's MS4 stormwater permit requirement for this year. Looking for a motion. Alderman Santi?
I'll make the motion to approve the annual MS4 facilities report as presented as 6A.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Glab?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion on this item by City Council? See none, I'm going to open up for public comment regarding this item. See none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 6B, East Beach Park Playground Equipment. Looking for a motion to approve a proposal from Team Real for the replacement of the playground equipment at East Beach Park in the amount of $23,173. Alderman Cook?
I'll make the motion, pass 6B.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Bassi?
I would happily second that.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to say that, I know, Alderman Cook has, worked hard with, Director Hobson on this, project, and, it's probably been long overdue for that area as far as upgrading the beaches and the playgrounds, so I'm glad to see it happening.
Any other discussion by City Council? Open up for public comment regarding this item. See none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey?
Happily, yes.
Alderman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santi?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is 6C, Agreement with Advanced Real Estate Management LLC. A motion to pass an ordinance authorizing the execution of a memorandum of agreement between Advanced Real Estate Management LLC and the City of McHenry. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Director Martin.
I just wanted to say, staff believes this is a quality tenant, one which the city has been trying to attract for quite some time. It's a the Treehouse Play Cafe is a family-oriented business for kids, which the city needs and would fill a gap that currently exists. Moreover, it will bring people to McHenry as well as McHenry Town Center. Staff supports this request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Doug. Looking for a motion to approve 6C as presented. Alderman McClatchy?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second? Alderman Miller?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Discussion by City Council? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, I just want to say that we've already got an agreement with Advanced Real Estate Management. We're, up to $1.5 million, through the, life of that agreement. Why would we add another $20,000 onto there? We're talking $1.5 million already to the real estate management. I think to some extent, according to the agreement, the original agreement, they take, the building and the store, and they actually take it all the way to the drywall and the paint on the perimeter of the store, and it's the renter that's liable for the rest of it to improve. And I think that's somewhat a cost of doing business as far as investing into the business that you plan to open up.
So I'll talk on behalf of this. So when we've been negotiating with Treehouse and the tenant and the landlord, the easiest and most efficient way was to increase the incentive by $20,000 versus working out agreements with the Treehouse directly. So this money will be impacting them to help them get the facility and get a signed agreement. We've been working with for over 3.5 to 4 years. Finally, in the last couple days, they've come to terms with the agreement. So this $20,000 was to get them to sign the agreement. So that's all I'll say. It was just an easier opportunity to get it done. Alderman Santi?
Yeah, when I went through this, I talked to staff earlier today in regards to the extra $20,000. I got a better understanding of why we're doing it, and I discussed the industry types that may or may not go into there in regards to taxes. This is a unique concept for families and children, and what I've noticed over at the Lake Zurich facility when I had been there on a couple occasions is how active it is and how much it is family oriented. I look forward to them coming into the city. My one concern is it's the location. I hope that location will satisfy their needs and be able to get the traffic in front of them to make this a successful business. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion by City Council? Alderman Glad?
Yeah, exactly what are they gonna use with this $20,000?
So it covers the CAM and taxes for one year? 1 year.
I'm sorry, the
Because
what?
it's take a year for construction,
Uh-huh.
and their concern is that the landlord wouldn't give them the agreement with the lease of a free rent while construction is going on, which a lot of property owners will do if it's a large enough business. Also, the business that was going to go in here was another dollar store, and I really did not see other dollar stores, so this is a better use, and the families have been asking for something for kids. So for $20,000, I think it's
Well, we thought about,
Wise choice.
working with them to find another location that might be,
we for 4 years we worked on this, and it's the height of the building, and that was the only building that would work in the city of McHenry with the square footage and the height that they need for the tree house, because the tree house, it's
I guess,
Just
still
follow up.
disgruntled about the fact that we have these big management companies, coming in and dictating to us, on different things that they know that we want, and they know we're hungry for, but, you know, comes to time that we've got to stop paying for things. In this case, yes, I think you're right. It's definitely an item for the kids, and that's, you know, what we do need. But, again, when do we stop just giving out money? You know, grant money, constantly, and, probably take and vote yes for this only because for the kids, of our community than anything else.
Okay. Any other discussion by City Council? Any public comment regarding this item? See none, clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bassey?
Yes.
Alderman Glad?
Yes.
Alderman Santee?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda is a discussion item. This discussion item is regarding construction of a proposed mixed-use development at 1111 North Green Street, including public structured parking. Here I'm going to give a quick rundown of how this discussion will. Tonight, City Administrator Suzanne Ostrovsky will present the item. David Patzell from Shodine will step up to this table and proceed to present the proposed mixed-use development at only 1111 North Green Street. Once again, this is only 1111 North Green Street that we are discussing tonight. The City Council will have the opportunity to discuss and ask questions of David Patzell, but he will answer all questions or try to answer all questions at the end of the public comments. After the Council's discussion, members of the public who would like to speak will have a maximum of 3 minutes. A little timer up here. He will control it for me. 3 minutes each. And please avoid repeating points that you have that others have already mentioned to kind of speed up the process. Following public comments, Dave Patzell will respond to concerns raised by the public, and then the City Council will conclude the discussion and provide direction to staff. So that's how we're going to run that discussion item. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to City Administrator Suzanne Ostrovsky. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here for this important discussion. We appreciate your participation. For those who are not aware, the City Council and City of McHenry have been in conversations and discussions with Shodine Development. They are based out of Geneva. I'm sure that when Dave Pat steps up to the mic, he will give you the full rundown of who Shodine is and what they do. Shodine initially approached the city in 2021 to take a look at some of the development sites that we had here in town. As everyone is aware, a lot of these are through that Green Street corridor there. And so, as the mayor said, tonight's conversation is specific to 1111 North Green Street. We do have a standstill agreement. The City of McHenry has a standstill agreement with Shodine for downtown development, and essentially what that means is the City Council has given Shodine the exclusive right for a period of time to develop these specific properties in downtown McHenry. I'd like to just mention, though, 1111 North Green Street is not part of that standstill agreement. This is actually a separate private real estate transaction between Shodine and the private property owner of 1111 North Green Street. One of the most important things that the City Council and all the public need to understand is that because this is a private transaction, the only reason that this conversation is before the City Council at all is because of the public ask for the public parking. Otherwise, Shodine Development could close on this property tomorrow, and they could build whatever is within their rights to build within the C4 downtown development district, downtown commercial district, pardon me. What that means is that no public parking or parking of any kind is actually required by our ordinance. So the City Council is stepping in to say, we would like to have this public parking, and that's the conversation that we're here to have tonight, whether or not the City Council is prepared to move forward with that. And obviously, we're looking for input from the public as part of that conversation. 1111 North Green currently has 46 parking spaces included on the parcel. So if for some reason somebody wanted to come in and buy that property and develop it, they have no requirement to replace those public parking spots. I think there is I've only been here for 5 or 6 months, but from what I've come to understand, there is a general impression that there is not enough parking in downtown, and I think the feeling that I've gotten is that if we lose those 46 public parking spaces and we don't replace them, we're going to have an even bigger problem with parking downtown. So what we are discussing tonight is the proposed parking garage that could potentially be a part of a development on the site. The city would then own that public parking garage, and I'm sure that Dave Patzelt from Shodine will kind of fill in around the edges of this. But in concept, the city would pay money to have the public parking built as part of the private development, and then we would own that garage. The city would own that garage and derive revenue from selling those overnight parking passes to the residents of the development. So with that, I'm going to bring Dave Patzelt up, and he's going to, as the mayor referenced, run through his presentation and talk a little about the development that he's proposing to build at 1111 North Green.
Before you get started, I just ask that in between conversations, please keep the applause to yourselves and also be professional and courteous to Dave Patzelt as well. So, David, the floor is yours.
Good evening. For the record, my name is David Patzelt, P-A-T-Z-E-L-T, 77 North 1st Street, Geneva, Illinois, 60134. Thank you for the brief introduction. To give the audience maybe a little bit further introduction as to who the Shodine organization is, just like to share a little bit of what we do and the types of development and types of communities in which we do our work. We've been in business for about 60 years. We're based out of Geneva, Illinois. The predominant work that we have done stretches from Kendall County on up through Walworth County, Wisconsin. We generally call that the Fox River Valley, and we do very little to no work as you go east or west out of that Fox River Valley. The type of work that we do includes constructing single-family homes. We build approximately 100 to 125 homes per year. We're also in the commercial space development business. That includes taking land, developing for commercial uses. Those types of uses can vary anything from a couple hundred square foot dental office that is a tenant of ours to a user, our largest user is a 60,000 square foot grocery store, the Jewel Osco in St. Charles. We also are in the apartment business, and so we develop, build, construct, own, and maintain apartments in that same general area. As I said, the organization's been in business about 60 years. I've been with the organization about 30 of those 60 years. My responsibilities include land acquisition, redevelopment, and zoning and entitlement, as well as contracting with for single-family contracts and commercial building. I'd like to walk you through a little bit of the Green and Waukegan, or otherwise known as 1111 North Green. And if I could get that slide. Thank you. So the area shaded in red in this slide is generally the northwest corner of Green and Waukegan. The site is the site of the former City Hall building. As Suzanne had mentioned, there contains existing 46 parking spaces. At one point in time, I'll refer to it as almost a flag-shaped lot. The upper left-hand corner where I'll say there's that little notch of red, the parcel actually included the horizontal parking lot that is running generally parallel to Boone Creek, north of the Landmark School. It did not include, just to the left of that blue line, you'll see that there is a orange line with some significant orange colored contour lines. The site originally did not include that area to the left of that orange line. The prior owner had a land swap that was conducted with the school district to trade, giving the school district the parcel that is parallel to Boone Creek up on the north of Landmark School, and receiving from the school district that piece in between two orange lines that is immediately east of the Landmark School. So the site that we're proposing to work on this evening is that area shaded in red. If I can go to the next slide, please. On this slide, there's two different illustrations. I'll start with the illustration on the left. The council, for those of you council members that were on the council several months back, you may recall that we brought before you some issues with dealing with easements that were recorded on the property that were not necessary. The council reviewed those easements, and many of those easements were released. Remains one existing easement, and that is the one that is noted in red and kind of running diagonally from the upper left to the lower right. That is the existing sanitary sewer that is there today. However, with the proposed development, that sanitary sewer would be relocated to the easement that is also highlighted in the red words that generally is running parallel to Boone Creek. Another thing to note on the plan is that in the lower right-hand corner of that parcel, and again, I'm still on the left-hand sketch shown here on the screen, the lower right-hand parcel of land actually goes out into the island, and in essence, the right-hand turn lane for southbound Green Street is actually on private property. So that lane remains open, but you'll see in our proposed plan that that right turn lane will be vacated. On the right-hand side of the sketch, you'll see that we've done an overlay to try to incorporate the Riverwalk that was proposed many years ago along what I'll say the south banks of Boone Creek. Those Riverwalk plans, I believe it's referred to as Riverwalk potentially Phase 5. Our plan does incorporate maintaining space for that for the redevelopment of that Riverwalk along the southerly edge of Boone Creek. If you could go to the next slide, please. So as I mentioned, you can see along Boone Creek, the northerly edge, we have included some illustration of what that Riverwalk plan was proposed, and I'll get into those details in a few further slides later on. To stay focused on the building, the building consists of 88 residential units, and that is a mix of studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. There are no 3-bedroom units, and there is also a total of 157 parking spaces in two levels, and there is a commercial space of approximately 3,200 square feet. The commercial space is on the very north end of the building and is somewhat shown in, I'll refer to it as an orange color. That commercial space is intended to or hopes to be a restaurant. That restaurant would have outdoor dining shown immediately north along Boone Creek. The parking garage, as I said, has 157 parking spaces. There's 2 levels of parking. The lower level is accessed off of Green Street. It may be difficult for the audience to see, but about in the middle of the building, there is a red arrow pointing to the lower level parking garage. It is, again, about in the middle of the building, and you would, thanks for blowing it up, that entrance that is on the right-hand side of that red open arrow is accessing approximately 1/2 of the parking spaces. There is no internal ramp, vehicular internal ramp connecting the upper level and the lower level parking garage. So the second level parking garage would be accessed by continuing south on Green Street to the intersection of Waukegan, and then heading west on Waukegan and entering the south face of the building. In essence, we're using the natural grade of Waukegan and Green Street to gain that access. So this is the lower level parking garage. The next, I'm sorry, Suzanne, if you could zoom out a little bit to give you an illustrative concept, ideas of what the Riverwalk and dining space could look like. On the right-hand side, there are some illustrative photographs of what that outdoor space could look like. And if I could go to the next slide. Taking you up one more level, this is the second level. Again, the second level is accessed off of the south at Waukegan Street. There is no access, obviously, when you're on the second floor from Green Street. The yellow space to the north, again, is the commercial space, and again, for ceiling height, that space would be open to the lower floor. On top of these 2 levels of parking, there will be 4 residential levels, and if we could go to the next slide, please. The yellow and blue boxes generally illustrate for you the studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom units. Each of the units, whether they're a studio, 1-bedroom, or a 2-bedroom, would each have their own balcony. Opened to the ceiling of the second floor as you were facing east, there would be an open deck over the parking lot, almost similar to the deck that is on the River Place condominium building or apartment building immediately across the street, that deck that's on top of the commercial space. So those units that face the east could access that open deck. That open deck would be for members that are living in the building only, but it's not specifically excluded or secluded for those tenants facing that deck. Next slide, please. There were questions raised about the relative height of our proposed building as compared to the relative height of the Landmark School. We had various discussions internally about a pitched roof on the building versus a flat roof building. Architects will tell you, and you may get an idea of it if you study architecture much at all, a pitched roof versus a flat roof obviously has a taller roof where the ridge line is higher than a parapet wall that's on a flat roof. However, standing back when you're looking at a building, most architects would tell you that a pitched roof building, albeit the ridge line is higher, generally looks shorter. And also you can see where the head of the windows here are at the eave of the window, and that is allows you to get more ceiling height inside the building with a pitched roof versus a flat roof building. Yet, so bringing the eave line down on the building again makes the building look sure. Secondly, we believe that a pitched roof is probably preferred in this location, and that the architectural feature of the pitched roof is in keeping with the residential neighborhood generally to the west, and also in keeping with the Landmark School. However, that being said, we are open to doing either a flat roof building or pitched roof building. So to give you a comparison of the height, the eave line of this building is currently shown lower than the peak of the bell tower, and obviously lower than the flagpole, and also lower than the chimney of the Landmark School. The ridge line of the pitched roof building is higher than the bell tower roof, but lower than the chimney and lower than the flagpole of Landmark School. I would like to point out that this drawing was done more or less because there are some discussions that were generated and questions raised about the prominence of the Landmark School, and would our building perhaps take prominence if it was taller. There is no zoning requirement that says that the Landmark School has to be the tallest building in McHenry, and also there's really no narrative as to at what point or what element of the Landmark School is the top of the Landmark School building. In this case, we try to give you the eave line of our building and also the ridge line of the building in comparison to those elevations. As I mentioned to you earlier, if we could go to the next slide. Years ago, there were a variety of drawings completed for...
Mayor, I'd like to interrupt for a second.
Sure, go ahead.
Dave, these renderings with the Riverwalk are not your slides. Why are you using it for your presentation? It's kind of deceiving.
The idea here, and as I was just going to state to you, is that we have incorporated those slides to give you an idea of what was previously planned, and we have no objection to these, and they're what could be done with the Riverwalk. We are not proposing to do any improvements to the Riverwalk. We leave that up to the Riverwalk commission or committee. All we're trying to do is that suggest that we are trying to incorporate and meet the needs of the Riverwalk and want to work with the Riverwalk with some improvements.
I get you, and I think anybody that develops this is going to be the same way. We want the Riverwalk to continue that way, but to use their slides, their presentation, is just not right. So,
I don't think you'll find any showing labels on these drawings. The drawings are...
You see McHenry Riverwalk. That's what you see on your slides.
Prepared by a different architectural firm and a different date. But I am not trying to illustrate anything that we are proposing. They're clearly done previously, and I think I stated that in my opening comments. But there's no hidden agenda that we're trying to persuade somebody with these, other than to show what has been previously designed, and we have no objection to that.
Alderman McClatchy, so these drawings were done in 2008, and some individuals don't have that vision as what it could potentially look like. So I'm actually the one who reached out to David Patzel, along with Bill Hobson, to say, hey, do we have any type of drawings that the city is, because Bill was actually involved in this since it even started in 2008, or 2005, the Riverwalk Foundation. So we've had these plans through the Riverwalk Foundation since then. But I wanted to give that vision of what this could look like, because a lot of people don't have the vision of what potentially could continue to happen in the city of McHenry. So
that's going to go there regardless who develops this. And it just seems like it's put in this frame here that it's part of the project, and it's not.
It's dated 2008. So, I mean, we're just imposing the building on it. So I'll follow the knife on it. That's fine.
I would just add, even on this illustration that's added here, it was a private project with an overlay of the city project. So this was actually Ned Newman and Kunet that we went through city council and had a development agreement in place at that point. I personally had met with the District 15 School Board and the Landmark Parent Association to talk about and make sure that the land swap could occur, and that both parties were on board for that land swap to accommodate both the private development as well as what we as the city were trying to push for the Riverwalk in whatever we decide to do in this section. So this was kind of the original, well, there was a 2005 plan, the original Riverwalk plan, We knew that wasn't quite going to work there, and that's when we started talking about the land swap. Met with Landmark, the Landmark parent group, and said this is something closer. We talked about an outdoor classroom or something that could work better with them at that point. We brought that to City Council as well to sign off on those before that board to say we will build something like this. And that's where you see this is a little more full-blown. The next version was, I think, 2017 that I'm sure Dave will get to. That's a 2017 version that we as the Riverwalk Foundation then moved forward and said, all right, we need to take a look at this, look at a couple different areas in 2017. And so the next round will be the 2017 version, just ensuring that whatever we decide to do or look at doing will fit. I think we've had an excellent track record all along the way of working with developers, be that McHenry Villa at that point or the Riverwalk Place townhomes or any of the businesses right now, whether that's Jim Arcos or after the Fox. We've done an excellent job of working with them to ensure that our project melds well with what they're trying to do. I think that's essential into the success of the Riverwalk and the private development as well.
Okay.
So sorry to interject.
I stand by what I said, and I'm sorry, Dave, for interrupting.
Like Alderman, I'll make one more point, and that is, as the purchaser of the land, we will be acquiring the land up to the water's edge, and the intent would be that we were conveying that land that is, in essence, in these plans for the Riverwalk back to either the city or the Riverwalk Commission. But there are more slides here. If I have no objection to stopping my presentation and taking questions at this point, if you would not like to see the other. Okay. Suzanne, next slide, please. Again, this is an illustrative that of what some of the concepts and detailed elements could consist of along the Riverwalk, including what I'm going to refer to as an amphitheater seating style seating that would be looking out over the river, as well as a proposed bridge that would give a pedestrian bridge immediately to the west of the property, so that people cross pedestrians could cross Boone Creek from the north and south sides without getting back to Green Street. Next slide, please. Again, if you could zoom in a little bit, thank you. Again, to give you some idea of landscaping and the bridge, as well as a path or hardscape path extending from on the right-hand side from Green Street to the west through the amphitheater and to the pedestrian bridge that would be on the west. And then there is a cross-sectional view trying to illustrate the elevation of the river and the Riverwalk. Next slide, I think there. And then some photographs or illustratives to give you a three-dimensional look of the amphitheater and a potential overlook out onto Riverwalk. Out onto Boone Creek. So that concludes my presentation. I am available for questions now from the council, or would you like to go into public comment? Thank you.
Thank you, David. So we have three items that we're going to discuss tonight. The first one is the building height, proposed elevations, and roof design. So we'll go ahead and open up for discussion by the City Council on that. Also, the second one, which we'll get to in a little while, in regards to staff's recommendation to establish a 1% food and beverage tax to be applied citywide. And then the third one, negotiation of a redevelopment agreement at 1111 North Green, which will be brought back to the City Council for consideration in a future meeting. Item number 4, the expansion or extension of the standstill, we will be removing that this evening. So those are the three items that we need direction from by the City Council. The first one, once again, is the building height, proposed elevations, and roof design. Open it up for discussion by City Council at this time. Or questions to David Pazzo. Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, I just want to state the fact that we're talking the height of the building, and you're comparing it to Landmark. One thing that did not tell us is the fact that there is a difference of 14 feet of elevation between where you're at and where the school is. So my concern isn't so much a distance of looking at buildings, but as I'm walking down Green Street, I'm going to be looking at a 6-story building versus a 4-story building across the street. And I'm going to be looking at a building that's much taller than Landmark School when I'm walking in front of Landmark School. And Landmark, when you're talking the heights, you're talking the chimney, the peak or whatever, and here you're looking at an entire huge building all the way across. So I just wanted to bring up as far as the height of the building and in comparison to Landmark, that elevation changes a lot of as far as what you're looking at.
Any other questions, comments? Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I think it's too big for that location. 6 stories is just too much. I mean, we got 4 stories across the street. You know, I hate to see Green Street turn into a concrete jungle, but, you know, once we start building these buildings, they're going to be there forever. I'm not too pleased with the outside of it. I wish it was more ornate or fit in there better, but I'm not happy with the height at all.
I just want to point out, if we did not do the public parking, this structure would be a 3-in-1. So it'd be 3 residential, 1 garage. So it'd be 4 stories at that point. The reason it's this tall is because of the addition of the public parking. I just wanted to make sure that everyone's on the same page on that. Alderman Miller?
Thank you, Bridget. I like the building. I like that 6 stories, because we've been adamant that we need the parking, and to get the parking, this is what we have to have. In order to accommodate the lost parking for the residents, and add public parking. I think the topography of the lot lends itself nicely to this building, particularly with the 2 separate entrances to the garage space, with the upper garage having access from Waukegan, the lower garage having access from Green. It is essentially slightly taller than Landmark, but when I look at Landmark, the untrained eye looks at the highest point of a building. So the highest point of the building of Landmark is either the chimney or the flagpole, and flagpoles are taller than buildings for that reason. They're supposed to be. So this building would be less than the flagpole at Landmark. I think it's good use for the topography. Ned Newman was my friend. This is the building that Ned Newman wanted to see there. He wanted to see the topography used, and I think it's a good rendition for what should be there.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments by council? Alderman Davis?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say, I actually appreciate the illustration of what the Riverwalk was.
Can you hit your mic? I'm sorry.
I'll start over. I appreciate what the illustration shows. I didn't take it as you were trying to take that on. You've been pretty straightforward with that's not part of the development. But a couple of questions from that. How would that piece be left? You come in and develop it, how would it be left? My assumption is you wouldn't be able to coordinate the Riverwalk development and have that completed at the same time the development is, right? So that would be, what would be the condition of that piece where the Riverwalk would be, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so we could work in conjunction with the developer, and Bill, if you want to go ahead and speak on behalf of that.
The best, I guess, illustration I can give you was when we built the Riverwalk, not we, but when we partnered to build the Riverwalk Place townhomes. At that point, we put in a seawall, we put in a sidewalk, but the Riverwalk boardwalk wasn't there. So we built the piers and put ramps up, knowing that we were going to come back and build the boardwalk on top of that. So there was a void there that was connected, but there was a void that was ready for us to build what it is that we had proposed to build at that point. So that's the best instance that I can give you of a past history of how it worked with a brand new development and Riverwalk improvements that maybe weren't quite ready to go in yet, but we knew what we were going to build and made plans for those to be built.
Yeah, I guess my question would have been, is more of that, are we in a position to do that coordination so there isn't, it's not sitting for 2 years or whatever it is that we need to be able to have time to do that, so.
Absolutely. I think that's where it comes back to what we decide on, what you decide on as a council, or Mr. Patzelt decides on as development, and then we will, as a group, I'll bring something forward to you to say, all right, this is what we propose that works with his development, and we can pretty quickly do some engineering. There's already some preliminary engineering, even based on what you've seen here on the illustrations, that we can then expand upon and have those done pretty quickly to say, all right, this will match up with what the development is proposed.
Okay, and then you did mention about that portion that would be, so is that going to be gifted to the city, or is there, going to be leased back, or how would that work, just out of curiosity? Because I think that's nice that you guys are doing that, and I think that shows that you're trying to make things work, but just to kind of clarify that point.
David, you want to go ahead and discuss the redevelopment agreement and how that would play out as far as the...
Sure. Trying to get back to you all at one time, but I'll try to hit a few of these where we're at now. To start with, Alderman, what we have done in other communities where we've had similar interactions with, maybe not a Riverwalk, but we've had interactions with a park district that had an abutting park. We've also had interactions with other communities that were perhaps redeveloping the street. Similar to this case here, we know that Green Street in the next several years is going to be redeveloped and is going through design work. So what we've done in those other communities is the municipality or the park district, in the one case, would complete their design work, their budgeting, and they either allow or ask us to coordinate that work with us. There's also been times where they have the municipality or park district, in the case, has awarded or sent out for bid. And when they send out for bid, they allow or tell bidders up front that this work will be construction managed by the Shodine organization in conjunction with abutting and neighboring buildings. We have done that in the past. This is a partnership. We too would like to see the work done, and we know that the two have to work hand in hand with whether it's access for seawall or even meeting grades or somebody not working in the same space that the two construction trades need to work in. So in the past, we have done that, not asking for a fee, open book, whether that the billing comes through Shodine and then gets passed on to the city, or the billing goes directly to the city. So our biggest concern is make sure that the work is coordinated together. So we're willing to participate in that for not and not taking a fee for that coordination work. Okay. The land conveyance is part of our redevelopment agreement that we would have with the city. We would convey that land in a typical land would probably be a lot would be created. You would see a plat come before the city council. That plat would show the proposed lot, and then there, in essence, I'm going to call it a real estate transaction, where that land would be conveyed to the city or to some Riverwalk, or if it was a park district or something of that sort. The cost of that land generally is it's $1 or $10, and in order to have the transaction, it has to be the $1 or the $10. But that is that, in essence, we're trying to convey the land for free, albeit the need to have some dollars exchange hands. So that would be spelled out in the redevelopment agreement with the city, and you and staff would know that they're getting the land. If I can go to a couple of the other items, one question was raised again about the 6th Street height. As you walk down Green Street, I'd like to point out that please keep in mind that much or similar to what you have on the east side of the street where River Place is at, once you get to the second floor, the building is actually set back on, call it the interior core for majority of the space of the building. Yes, two elements of the building come out towards Green Street, and on those corners, you'll have a true 6 stories along Green Street. But that fenestration of the building and that provides relief the building and also provides architectural interest rather than just seeing a box or square on that corner. So we believe that our architecture, we're interested in having a nice architecturally attractive building. We believe that people want to live in things that are architecturally attractive. So it is important to us to have something that is attractive, and we believe that we have taken that thought into place in our architecture. And also on the 6 stories, really the 6 stories is being driven by what we've been dubbing for quite some time with staff and ourselves, and that's 4+2. It's the 4 residential levels over 2 of parking. If we want to start to shorten the building, we can certainly talk about either shortening the residential component of the building or shortening the parking component of it. But the two are really somewhat tied hand in hand. 4 stories, those 4 stories and those residential components are generating a significant amount of TIF increment, which helps pay for the 2 additional levels of parking. So I believe, much like the standstill agreement is on the other 2 areas of downtown McHenry, the redevelopment, it is this is truly we take it as a partnership between us and the city, and we are trying to work collaboratively together, meet your needs as well as meet our needs as to what we think is driven by the market, as well as we all have a budget that we have to meet, whether that's building a parking garage or building parking spaces for the city, or coordinating sanitary sewer and water main work and redevelopment of Green Street and redevelopment of the Riverwalk. That's all part of the partnership. The financial performance associated with this proposed building have been provided to city staff, and the city staff has sent that off to a well-known professional financial analyst that works for public entities and municipalities. So that too, that's a component. The financials have to support the project. So there's a little bit more to it than just, I would say, a 6-story flat wall against Green Street. I hope that answers, or at least adds inputs to questions so far.
Thank you, David. Alderman Davis, did you have anything else?
No.
All right,
good, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Bassi?
Thank you. Just like Alderman McClatchy, I'm not comfortable with the six levels, which I have verbalized before. But one of my main concerns is a parking garage very close to an elementary school. This is something that I have verbalized before. I've said it in our meetings that I do not feel comfortable having a 2-story concrete parking garage butting up against an elementary school. So this is something I don't think I would ever be comfortable with.
Alderman Cook?
Financing this building, is there any government entities, like the feds or the state, helping to build this building?
The short answer is no. I have to be somewhat careful with that answer. We all know that there's a cry, a request, state mandates for affordable housing in all of our communities. We are not, as an organization, we are not involved in the affordable housing. We focus on market rate housing, and typically, and I have never seen in my career where market rate housing there is any federal or state funding that is available for market rate housing. So again, short answer is no. Some communities in which we work, they require there to be some affordable housing product included in your residential product. And when we have worked within those communities either give the developer a couple alternatives. One is that you pay into a fund, and those funds are then used through another organization that may be providing affordable housing, or you can isolate an area, and in that area, affordable housing can be provided. We've done both. Most recently, in a project that we have done in St. Charles, Illinois requires 10% of all housing product, whether you're proposing single-family, condominium, or for rent apartment, or for rent attached, or for rent single-family. 10% of all of the housing product needs to be affordable. What we did on that project, there was a series of several building pads. We created one of those building pads would be the affordable housing product provided, and we sold that pad off to an experienced operator of the affordable housing product. So, albeit you may, when you look at the development, you may say, or someone may say, yes, there is a component within that development of affordable housing. We do not build it, we do not own it, we do not operate it, and nor do we manage it. So it's a specialty area, and it's a specialty area that we have never ventured into, and don't plan to do that in McHenry.
So this project has none of that in it? Does the
correct.
city require 10% or anything else like that? Thank you.
While we're on that topic, can you give us the rent amounts for the studio, the single bedroom, and the two bedroom amounts, if it was built today, I guess?
I apologize, I didn't bring those numbers with me, but generally you're going to be in the $2,000 range per month.
For which one? Starting at the studio?
I'm sorry, they're going to be in the $1,800 to $2,400 range, and those rental rates will vary based on not only studio one and two bedroom size of the unit. It'll also be based on the elevation or the floor that you're on within the building, and then also based on your view. If you're on the north, say you're on the northeast or northwest corner right along Boone Creek, those will be the most expensive units versus if you're in the middle of the building facing west.
Thank you. Alderman Bassi?
I have a follow-up question to that. With the parking garage, you've got 88 units. I have been told that they are not guaranteed a spot. They will pay a permit, but they are absolutely not guaranteed. At no point will it say reserved for apartment, whatever. So, first of all, what are you charging per month for your permit? And secondly, how successful is this? There's something going on in the evening on a Friday. I've worked late. I'm coming home. I live here. There's no place for me to park, and I'm paying to park there. So I want to get your opinion and your thoughts on how are you protecting the tenants so they actually have a place to park if they're paying?
So a couple things. The first one is restricted parking. We are against restricted parking, and whether that is for a resident living in the building or whether it was for say the restaurant or commercial space in the building. If the commercial user came to us and said, we will build a restaurant there if we get 10 reserved spaces in the parking lot. We will not support reserved parking. Secondly, when you come to rent an apartment from us and you ask us, or we will tell you that the parking is in a public parking lot. the public parking lot happens to be below the building, the municipality issues the permits. So they will be sent to City Hall, in this case, to obtain parking permits. As part of our redevelopment agreement, we will work with staff and yourselves to come up with what is that price range per month for that parking permit. Generally, we will have a maximum that we would like to see that parking permit priced at, and that generally is in the, I'll say, in the range of $100 to $125. Maybe it gets as high as $150 per month, but that is a maximum price that you would pay. So if you are interested in an apartment, you would know up front before signing a lease that if you want to park, where your parking will be and how you will go about getting a parking permit and what that fee will be. You will also probably have a restriction as to number of cars that you can have when you live in our building. We have no objection to having these guidelines set out up front so that when prospective tenants come to us, they know what the scenario is for parking. No hidden agenda, no smoke and mirrors of any kind, that you will know that you're going to be parking in a public parking deck. You also know that if you have visitors coming over, what and where the visitors will do if they come with a car, and can they get a short-term parking permit, and that will be something that we can discuss with yourselves and city staff. If you happen to rent an apartment in the downtown, we believe that you are renting an apartment because you're in the downtown. You're renting in our building because you enjoy that lifestyle, or you know the lifestyle that you're moving into or getting into. You're going to know that on whether it's Friday nights or Saturday nights or Thursday nights, that it can be active and it can be perhaps maybe it's a little bit loud. Maybe there's people walking about and moving about, and maybe there's open dining and live music and all of those sorts of things. So you're going to know that traffic and parking could be a problem. However, that is what we believe people want when they move into this apartment building. So you'll know up front. The rates are generally set up front, and the residents will know how many parking permits they can get to park within the building.
Conservatively, let's just say it's $100 a month per unit. So each individual, though they are not guaranteed a parking spot, they're going to be paying $1,200 additionally a year to not be guaranteed a parking spot.
You're 100%. You're 100% correct, and we have done this in other communities, and we have had people that there is no objection. We have also had experience in other communities where there are extra parking spaces, and the community was trying to raise additional revenue in the evenings or overnight, and they wanted to try to lease or get more parking permits, and so they would issue more than 2 spaces to some potential tenants. And we have no objection that if you, let's say that you want 1 car and you'll pay the $100, that if you want 2 cars, you may have to pay $150 or $175 for that second car. In essence, we believe that you're in a walkable area, a walkable community, and that you should be foregoing your vehicle. If you're attached to your vehicle, you need to pay for it. And we understand that the customers and clients are willing to do this.
And you're aware of the fact that McHenry, pretty much everybody got a car. And in most cases, if you're 16 or over and you have nice parents, that child also has a car. So we are a car-driven community. We don't have public transportation, and this development is nowhere near the train station. So if you are a commuter, you're going to need your car to go to the train station.
We understand those points and have no concerns with that.
All right, hey, we will not be having that in here today, at all, on either side. Thank you. Alderman Miller?
Dave, if discussions go well, when do you propose construction?
I believe that it will probably take, I'll say, 2 to 3 months to get through the development agreement, and then it will take us approximately 6 months to get to construction documents, so that's 9. This probably is a construction start in 12 months from now, perhaps as early as the spring of 25, but most likely I would guess that in later than the spring of 25.
Would it be appropriate that I include John Smith in the conversation?
Sure.
John? So I think one of my concerns is the Riverwalk.
John, can you step up to the podium?
And Phase 5, and the cost of Phase 5, and you being the creator, have a pretty good handle on how fast could you ramp up Phase 5, and how much, wild guess, Phase 5 is going to cost.
Well, actually, just for a point of reference, how that elevation, which is the south view, how wide is that? No, building, there you go.
I'm sorry, I believe that's the full width of the building is approximately 120 feet.
I'm sorry, you said 120?
120 feet from left to right.
Okay, so we're going at about $3,500 to $5,000 a foot of development cost right now. I think that works out right. We have $1.5 million on Phase 4, and I think it's about 400 feet long, which is about, what, 3,500, 4,000? So just to do the section along the building, if it's 100 feet and it's 4,000 a foot, I mean, you're talking about 400,000 or half a million dollars. The unknown piece, cost-wise, is what we do with like a potential amphitheater, if any. The major portion of it, though, is the old Pearl Street Bridge. What the cost is to reconstruct that, abutments, things of that nature. So, and I don't know, is the sanitary sewer taken care of through that area now? Okay, so it's hard. I don't know that number, but just along this building alone, it would be about call it $400,000 to $500,000.
So we did do, as part of that plan, that the illustration that you see from 2017, we also did a cost estimate in 2017. 2017 costs about $1.5 million, including the restoration of the bridge and the walk. So from Green Street up to that bridge, including the restoration and implementation of the bridge, was about $1.5 million in 2017.
So in one of the other proposals that we've recently approved, we had a similar older estimate, and we came in at, I don't remember what we just approved, but it was 30% greater. It was the rec center, when we were discussing the rec center. So let's assume you were at $1.5 million, add 30%, that's another 145. We're $1,950,000 to to get us a finished drawing. And, John, how fast could you ramp that up? No,
Well, I used to be in the business, but I'm not a consultant anymore. I mean, you're looking at 6 months for design drawings probably. By the time you do surveying and everything and getting everything in place for bid documents.
So I find it very appealing that we only, if this project moves forward, I find it very appealing to do it all once, not twice. So your time frame, 6 months to ramp up, is very much in alignment with Shodine's. It's probably not going to be a year till we scoop a bucket of dirt.
But we as a Riverwalk Foundation, we do not have a $500,000. So that's the big question. Where does that come from? Yeah.
I told you to sell more fire globes.
Okay.
Well, what are you doing? Okay, thank you, John. Thanks for your information.
I also want to say, John's been instrumental in the Riverwalk Foundation this year, but John has been a huge asset, and still is, even though, he's trying to retire more and more, I think, but he's been very involved in Phase 4, and thank you, John, for all you've done. Appreciate it.
Could we back on to 1111
Yep.
though? Okay, thank you. Ross, could you tell me what is the building height limit that we have in the C4 zoning?
I want to say it's 35 feet without opening the book and looking.
Approximately.
I believe it's 35 feet, yes.
So this development does not meet that 35 feet then?
No, it does not.
What's the overall height again?
It's on it. Is it 80? Got to do some math.
Approximately 43 feet?
80.
Huh?
80? Yeah. River Place is 65 feet.
So we're talking a variance of more than double of what the limit is in our ordinance, is it this bad?
Well, we would probably do a PUD on this, so, I mean, whatever.
More than double?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. And without a parking garage, you've even said it before yourself that it's not doable without a parking garage there, correct? You've got to supply parking to your tenants.
So do we, the other proposal that we would have or have had was a 3+1, so a total of a 4-story building, but the parking, again, is would be built into the grade. So that would be a 3+1.
Well,
that would be a private.
It was brought up before that the fact that you build without any parking because it's not required. Well, yeah, you could build without it being required. However, it would be almost like Harry Carey taking and building something without any parking around at all. You know?
Correct. We would not build a 3-story building without any parking. However, I'd like to make sure it's clear, so it's 3+1 will fit on the site. We're okay with it, 3+1, but that is private parking. That would not be public. Would not be public parking.
Correct. And who pays for that sewer line that needs to be moved?
That is that sewer work is included within the budget and is included in our total cost of the project.
In your total. Pro forma.
Correct.
Okay.
For what is on the property. If there's sewer work in Green Street as part of the Green Street redevelopment plan, that would not be by us.
So what you're saying is part of that sewer line that needs to be moved off of your property in order to develop, you will pay for the part that needs to be moved on your property, and the rest of it is the city's.
That's
correct?
That's correct,
right.
Yes.
But if it didn't have to get moved at all because of the development, then therefore there'd be no cost to us at all. But it will be if that sewer line has to be moved, correct?
the sewer line, I believe, is currently going through the existing building.
Right.
So if you tear the building down that's there today, I think you're gonna have to do something with that sewer.
Oh, we've got an easement there, I mean, so we've got an easement. You know, all I'm saying is that if it gets moved, I think it should be the developer that would have to pay for that whole thing, and not the city, also sharing in the cost of moving it, because it's for that development that we're looking at.
Alderman
So,
Glab, if I may, so this would all be fleshed out through the redevelopment agreement, this negotiation, so none of this is set in stone at this point?
But I would rather,
but
I would
hear you.
rather bring it up now than when
Absolutely.
you have a document that you've worked on as part of an agreement, and then all of a sudden bringing these things up. So that's why I thought we had the meeting tonight, is just to bring these things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
The intersection, that I've heard on several occasions as far as Waukegan and Green Street, the northwest corner, that the building line goes through part of that street. However, that street has prescriptive rights. Do they not, Attorney McCardle? I mean, the street's been there for at least 50 years that way. It would be prescriptive, correct. Okay. I just want to bring these things out. Now, I guess a big question is with the parking garage, do we have an estimate of approximately what we're going to pay for in property taxes on that? Because we're going to pay property taxes on that garage. If we're collecting any kind of income on that, we're going to have to pay property taxes on it. So we better make sure that we're including that into whatever financial figures that we're figuring on, because there is property taxes that we will definitely have to pay on that. Now, according to the agreement, we were supposed to get 60-day reports to the city on our last agreement that's in effect right now, that the developer gives us a report every 60 days to the city, and when they say to the city, I think it needs to be relayed to the council as well, that the council does get that report within every 60 days, because I think we need to keep abreast of what's going on over there. And I will also state the fact that I don't want to see more than a 4-story building there. I don't want to be walking down Green Street and having to look up where Superman's coming down off the roof or not, you know. Tall buildings in a single bound, but I think the Riverwalk Place is a sufficient height. It looks good down there. When you look at it, it sticks out, and I'm thinking to myself, like I went over to Jeff's today, and I was sitting or standing on the street over there. It was crossing. I looked down the street and saw that building, and I'm thinking to myself, that's 4 stories, and they want 6. You know, how much more is that going to be obtrusive as far as looking at it, even from that distance? And I can only imagine when you walk it. And again, a few years back, I used to hit a lot of the western suburbs and the northwest suburbs as far as downtown areas, delivering magazines for to the bars and restaurants. And I went down through Arlington Heights and Geneva and all that. And this McHenry is
officially voted in, I want to say '04 or '03. And from that point, the gentleman that, the townhomes had the commitments, because we gave him a commitment on the Riverwalk to make it attractive, to make it pedestrian friendly. And since that point, we now have a Riverwalk building which is 65 feet in height across the street. I guess one of the questions and concerns was, and I can only see Nick in the audience there, but you guys do offer like a permanent parking or some type of premium parking on certain units. In just a nod of the head, do you have any kind of premium parking cost or extra pricing? Yes or no on? You do? Okay, okay. Thank you, Dave. I wanted to see a visual, a 3D visual, and I still want to see it, a 3D visual of this building looking northbound as you're coming from Green Street, to see that angle. I've had some thoughts and some my concerns, but also had some constituents ask that question about it, visually, what is it impeding on, let's say. And I try to get a visual of myself when I'm driving down to kind of figure out, how it's going to sit there, knowing that the fact that to the left it will be the Landmark School, because I think when you're coming northbound, you get a visual of that corner, and Landmark is off to your left, so, you will see that Landmark as you're coming northbound there. Also, Shodine would be the management group of this building, correct, Dave?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. The parking lot across the street from the creek is a parking lot, and we've paved it to make it as friendly as possible for citizens or people coming in for fix-in, for restaurants, what have you, shopping. But it's a temporary parking lot. There will be some type of development there in the future. So that needs to be in our minds here as we look at this 6-story building. And I appreciate. I know Brian's in the audience. He is a nephew of Mr. New, who passed about 2 months ago. He's in the audience. I hope that he will speak later on to this evening. But one of the things that Mr. Newman did to me is, well, he hammered me over the years about it, but I have a drawing from '07 that was done that shows Mr. Newman's building with 2 levels of parking and 4 levels of living quarters, and drew it out where it's aesthetic, definitely a lot more aesthetically pleasing than what you showed me tonight, Dave. And I would say that you really need to look at the exterior at that building, and I think that's something that you are, and Shodine is willing to do that. So that's something that hasn't been public, it's not public record, but it's something that the gentleman that owns the property that came to us, we assisted as a city, but came to us with discussion and agreement with Shodine prior to him passing, was to put together a structure like this. So we do owe it to have a real hard look at this and see if this facility can work. Some of us were able to see what Shodine has done in other towns up front and in person. And one of those facilities was Oswego, which is mentioned in our packet tonight, which is it's twice the size in regards to units, correct? It's more than twice. It's 188 there, or 168 in Oswego, and we're 88.
176.
176 there, and we're at 88. And this is just one person, but I work for a company that has offices in the Fox Valley area, and one of the towns that we work in is Oswego. I spent one day in Oswego working with a brand-new employee of the company I work for, and we spent a lot of time in a coffee shop right downtown, probably 2 blocks from that facility. And the lady was very cordial. We spent time because I was training this gentleman, so we had a lot of time there sipping coffee. And finally, after about 2.5 hours of sitting there, I said, I asked her, I said, "Do you live here in town?" She goes, "Yes." I said, "Well, tell me your thoughts about that building 3 blocks over." She goes, "Well, I live there." "Okay. What do you think?" It's Oswego. I love it. It's a beautiful facility. Now, demographic, middle to older female on her own, living there. One thing she mentioned though, on a Friday or Saturday night, when she closed, or late in the afternoon, maybe on a Saturday, special event in downtown Oswego, she did have to park outside, knowing that, but that was the one, negative that she could pass on to me, but she definitely loves that facility. Now, it's just one person, but I just wanted to bring that up to everybody, and I really feel that Shodine and now the representatives of Mr. Newman really need to we just need to make sure that they're heard. It's their property. It's what Mr. Newman's wanted to do since it's been 15 years ago. So, and I think we definitely need to take a hard look at getting this project going, and knowing the fact that because we built a Riverwalk, and because we have a live entertainment area, and because we have some people reinvesting money, other people that own buildings, and other people that are investing more dollars because they see that what's going on, that we do see that there is development going on, and this is just one step of continuing this, and it's 3 different areas, but this downtown redevelopment. That's all I have right now. Thank you.
Ross, go ahead. Yeah, I just want to jump in, back to Alderman Glad and the height. In the C4 district, there is no height limitation. However, you are to move back 2 feet for every foot over 35 feet. So if you go 36 feet back, 36 foot tall, you move the foundation 2 feet back from the property, and you just keep going with that. So no limitation, you just are squeezing the building.
Build a steeple at the end.
Correct. Yeah. And I didn't make those rules up.
Alderman Miller?
I just wanted to make a comment, and I'm showing my age when I do. Back in 1984, when the hospital proposed to build a 7-story hospital out at its current location, I think we all panicked and said, "Oh my God, 7 stories? We don't even have a fire truck that'll service the top of the building." But we needed it. It was growth. It led our community in the south. It's a beacon out there. It's amazing. And it's 7 stories. And the land out there is similar. The topography lent itself to the 7 stories because it falls off the back, so you really don't see ground floor. You start on floor 2 and up you go. So I think when you look at what's in the best interest of that particular lot, we could argue all day what could be there, but we have a proposal in front of us of what can be there. And I hope we all take a good look at it because it fits, or at least in my opinion, it fits. So thank you for bringing it, but I only wanted to bring up the history of the hospital because although I didn't sit at this table, I was a community advocate, and we all went, holy crap, when they were going to put that up. So thank you.
Alderman McClatchy, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to shift gears a little bit here and talk about traffic. Chief, do you have a traffic count for Green Street?
Like a traffic count or a parking spot?
No, traffic.
No.
Nothing like that.
No.
I'm just, Green Street's kind of a mess right now in the evening with traffic going in. This is only going to add to that. So that's one of my concerns. People pulling in this parking lot, if there's someone in front of them trying to park and that, is there going to be a backlog on Green Street to add to that,
I think, my opinion, based on how it's laid out, it would improve that area compared to as now. There's 2 exits on the Green Street now that are used. One is actually adjacent to the crosswalk, which becomes a problem when people are trying to cross right in front of Buddy's there. And then obviously there's one on the south side of the old police department building, and then one off of Waukegan. So this would limit it down to from 3 to 2.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
No offense, Matt, Chief, but, Alderman McClatchy, it's pretty hard to take a traffic count on, going downtown because the speed limit's supposed to be 20 and everybody's doing 35. Nobody does 20 miles an hour through Green Street, and that is what the speed limit's supposed to be over there. So, I just wanted to mention that when you brought up the traffic.
All right. Any other comments? Ross, go ahead.
So if I could just, Alderman McClatchy, the city council did authorize, staff to go ahead and contract with Christopher Burke Engineering to do those studies, and so those studies have already been completed. We were looking at what the traffic was going to look like, because our intention is to put a road from, and this is not 1111, but that's why we looked at these traffic counts. So we have all these traffic counts, because we wanted to connect Green Street up to 120 on the Green and Elm site. Mm-hmm. So we will have those, and they will be analyzed by city staff and engineers.
Mayor, I'd like to it's time that we move on to the 1%.
Well, we need direction.
We talked about the height for quite a while, so.
Yeah, well, we still don't have direction by every single council member, so the last time I checked, I'm running the meeting. So, at this point, I'd like to get, everyone's opinion or input on the height, and then the proposed elevations and roof design. So if we can go one by one and kind of get some input and direction to city staff, and then, David, you're writing this stuff down as well. So we'll start out with Alderman Miller, which you kind of already expressed.
I'm good with it.
Thank you. Alderman Cook?
I guess I'm kind of good with it. I still don't like the height of it.
Alderman Bassi?
Well, I don't know. You seem like you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. I mean, you're trying to please a whole bunch of people here. First thing is parking. What is it we want? We want the parking or we want the building?
So we do have some slides coming up that are related specifically to the parking, as well as the ask from Shodine, for the additional grant money. So maybe before we do a consensus, maybe we can save that to the end. Okay. We can go through those slides, and that way you guys, the city council will have an opportunity to have a comprehensive kind of conversation and give us a yay or nay on all of the items at the same time.
So discuss the 1%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So.
Who's going to start that off?
Okay, so this is me again. Hello again. So as Dave mentioned earlier, the proposed development has 88 units with 157 parking spaces proposed. This conversation came earlier. Those numbers may move a little bit if this development does move forward, just because these are concept plans at this point. The parking garage has not been designed by an architect, and so, some of these things may move a bit. Hopefully, we're pretty close out to where those numbers ultimately shake out. As Dave mentioned earlier as well, this development contemplates a shared parking model. So what that means essentially is that it's open public parking, and so during business hours, all day long and into the evening, those spaces are open to anyone who wants to park there. Again, this is just a theoretical concept at this point, right? But I don't get the sense anyone on the city council is interested in charging on a regular basis for parking, at least at this point. So as we're having this conversation, we're contemplating that public parking would be free, free all day. Residents, as we discussed, would be required to purchase an overnight pass. The number $100 was kind of being bandied about. Just for everybody's kind of background, we looked up what they're charging for a similar development in Oswego that was a Shodine development, as we talked about. It's slightly larger, as is the parking garage, but they're charging right now $50 a month for the first car, and then it goes up to $130 or so for an additional car, as Dave referenced. And so, you know, when we say $100 to $150, those aren't necessarily going to be the rates that would be charged for those overnight passes. That's something that the City Council would have a voice in setting. Obviously, you know, as Dave mentioned before, there would be some form of agreement that basically puts a cap on, because what we don't want to see, and I don't think we want to see that, and Shodine doesn't want to see that, is to have those overnight parking pass rates be set at a rate where no one wants to pay it, right? So obviously there was some laughter in the room when we said $150 a month. That's not necessarily where it would be in McHenry, and that may not be where the City Council wants it to be. So none of that has been finalized at this point. This is all theoretical. But again, our hope, the city's hope, because the city would own that parking garage, the hope would be there that the revenue generated from those overnight passes would be sufficient to cover the operating expenses on the garage, because as you can imagine, you know, there's trash collection and sweeping and other additional needs that would come with owning that facility. But also, our hope would be to build up a capital reserve, because nothing in life, you know, stays good forever, right? So, making sure that we are planning for the future and having that additional account and having those funds ready to go if and when that maintenance needs to happen. I wanted to also point out there's a conversation within the memo that staff handed out, and which is included in the packet, that talks about the requirement for downtown apartments. The current requirement for commercial, so apartments over commercial, in the City of McHenry's code is 1 space per unit. What I think is important to note, and you know, you all saw the drawing earlier, is that these aren't all 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom units, right? More than half of them are studios and 1-bedrooms. I've lived in a studio apartment myself. I don't think there's room for more than one person, and I certainly didn't have more than one car. So trying to make sure that we are requiring the appropriate amount of parking, or imagining the appropriate amount of parking for the development that is actually being proposed. The other thing that I think is important to be aware of, part of this conversation, is the cost of building public parking. Again, you know, I've heard many conversations in the past few months about how important it is to have adequate public parking in the downtown area, especially as the area continues to grow. Our engineers ran some numbers for me, and so we're estimating that it's about $25,000 a space right now to build a new parking lot, surface parking lot in downtown McHenry. That's at today's costs, with land acquisition and demo of whatever's there, and then paving and those other items that have to happen in order to create that surface parking lot. That's estimated about $25,000 a space. We looked at the idea of building a standalone parking structure that was 140 spaces, so slightly smaller than what we're talking about with the Shodine development. That math turned out to be about $37,000 a space. So it is significantly more expensive than surface parking. It's also significantly more expensive than the concept of this shared parking structure. So we're talking, again, about 157 spaces. The city's buy-in for that would be the $2 million grant that we're talking about. That mapped out to a little less than $13,000 a space. Again, those won't all be public parking 24/7, because there will be some residents that are going to be parking in there, in those spots. But just to give you an idea, to give the City Council an idea of what that cost would be to build either a standalone parking structure or if we wanted to create more surface lots in downtown. So that's the parking section. So I don't know if we want to pause and see if the City Council has any questions specific to the parking ratios or the parking questions, because then we're going to go into this is what we want, and how do we pay for it, right?
All right, go ahead and, continue that. Alderman Cook. I apologize.
I can see the dollar amounts there and all that. I would say it's a good deal, but it's still the height of the building. You know, maybe I need more information. Maybe I'll have to sit at 120 in Green Street at the top of the hill there and look down and see how it looks. I mean, look, the building looks nice, and I know he doesn't build garbage. I mean, it's well-constructed buildings and stuff like that. I want it to fit. I wanted to use the money efficiently. I don't know what else to say. I'm kind of for it, but then again, you know, I think I need more information. But it sounds like a good deal to me.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah, for most of the things that I've heard, obviously the concern is the two major height and parking. For the most part, I'm in agreement that this is we're getting, the benefit for it, so I'm kind of in agreement. There are obviously goods and bads that go along with that, but.
Thank you. Alderman Bassey?
Well, I'm not in favor of a parking garage, so I think that states it all.
Alderman McLean?
Thank you. I think you know how I stand on the height. I think it's way too tough for that area. And as far as the parking, I just see that being a mess because people are going to. I'm trying to wrap my arms around this on people coming in, who's staying there, who's living there at nighttime. As far as the funding, McHenry is not in the business to finance developers. And we've got a lot of developers around here that haven't asked for a dime. So for us to give them money so they can make profit is just doesn't make sense to me. I understand why they want to go so high. The higher you go, the cheaper it is, the more money you get. But this is just the wrong location.
So, obviously, that's the only way to get the public parking, but are you in favor of the 3-in-1?
3-in-1.
3 residential, 1 parking, no public parking on that site whatsoever.
Well, if we went that route, I would really, really like to see us concentrate on parking. And across the creek, we've got all that property. If we could really put some good parking over there, I might consider it.
So we're just looking at a structure parking at $37,000 a spot.
Mm-hmm.
For 140 spots, we'd be paying over $5.2 million. So, I mean, just to build a parking structure, I don't know, a lot. I'm just,
okay.
That's all. So are you in favor of 3-in-1 then?
No.
So you're not in favor of the project as a whole?
No.
Okay.
I'd like to see something there. I mean, we need to develop it, but I just don't think this fits in.
Okay.
Well, excuse me, and you have me down as no 3-in-1, too high, and no parking.
Well, you said no parking garage, so that kind of, yep.
Yeah, it encompasses no on everything.
Got it. Alderman Gleb?
Yeah, it's definitely a no on the height of the building. No way that I want to see 6 stories. I think pretty much everybody's known that for quite a while, and I don't even want to see any apartments over there at all. I take a look and say, heck, why build a building there? Why not build just a parking structure? Yeah, okay. Granted, $5.2 million versus $2 million, all right? But you also take a look and say, and this is what kind of gets me is I talk about $4 million we needed for roads, and all we can come up with is 2.2. But now all of a sudden we need money for a parking garage downtown, and now we come up with different ways where we can get the revenue. Well, why didn't we think of these ideas when we needed the revenue to keep that $4 million a year for streets?
My first budget.
Anyway,
Give me a minute.
the point I'm making more than anything else is yeah, you're paying $2 million proposed gain, how many parking spots? 5?
Five.
With a development, plus what you have to, supply across the
No,
street?
it's not 5.
So, 5.2 million, granted, it's only 140 spaces, but you got 120 or 107, whatever it is, spaces that will be taken up by apartments. So, granted, one costs more to build than the other, but what's more feasible for our community? And it's, let's get the parking before we start building more areas where we're gonna have residents, or even commercial entities coming in that's bringing more traffic in. Let's solve some of the parking issues. Maybe we need to look at a parking garage, for ourselves. And that property actually, to me, is a great spot for it because of the heights and the 2 different access points. But I'm not gonna give our, taxpayers' money to a developer, to build something that is more beneficial to them than anybody else, not to the city. I don't feel it's that beneficial to the city, though. That's where I stand on it, no.
So you're not for 3-in-1 or any
Not even the 3-in-1, because the 3-in-1, he can't even get the spaces that he needs, to meet for the 88, units, correct?
It won't be 88.
It won't be 88, they'll have to reduce it because of the fact that, and at 3-in-1, he's talking 4 stories, so he's looking at 60-some feet, correct?
And the 3-in-1, how many apartments was it?
I believe it was 66 apartments,
66 apartments, so he's gotta have at least 66 parking
which we
spots,
would,
right?
which we would have on one floor.
They
Yeah, he would have
probably
that
have
on one
about
floor.
79.
Yeah, so, if that's what it'd be, that's what it would be, but I wouldn't. But then again, we need to look at, to have more discussions about our parking, and a parking garage down the road for public parking. Something that makes sense, something that we're not spending $2 million to gain five parking spots. And we need to do that quickly because we do have to make sure that we accommodate, those residents that are in the, River Place apartments, so that we're not inundating, the parking all the way through the downtown area with that.
Yeah. Suzanne, go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to respond because I think that the 5 parking spaces is a number that I put into the memo, and I want to clarify a little bit what that looks like. So when I said 5 additional parking spaces, that is over and above the 46 spaces that we would not have any longer. So really, it's a gain. It's a net gain of 51 if Dave comes in and builds his. If Shodine comes in and builds the development with 3 floors of residential, 1 floor of parking that is purely for residents. Those parking spaces that are there on that property now go away, plus we don't get anything additional, right? So I think the 5 is a little bit misleading, and I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that on City Council. The other thing that we've talked about a little bit, and I would suggest that Dave could respond to this, is the shared parking model that's involved with parking of this nature. Cody Sheriff, who is our city planner, is here as well. If the City Council has any additional questions about parking or shared parking, he's happy to answer those questions. The City Council will see that we have a memo that we passed out earlier this evening that Cody put together that kind of addresses parking ratios in downtown. And provide some additional background. So I just wanted to provide that opportunity for the City Council to ask Cody questions if necessary related to the parking. And as well, I would ask that Dave be given an opportunity to talk about shared parking a little bit. Thanks.
All right. Cody, you want to come on up? Right to the podium.
It's okay. You want me to sit next to Dave?
Floor is yours. If you could explain the shared parking. I'll just also say when we did a tour of their facilities, I mean, I'll just say, David, I mean, there was barely any cars in these large facilities that we went to. seems as many leave through the day, and actually going and talking in the River Place apartments as well. I mean, you actually sit outside their facility and you walk. I did this for hours, and watching cars come and go, whether it's from the Riverside or what is that? Riverside Residence, where they have a parking there. There's not many people that go in and out. So when you talk about parking and shared parking, it's not like you're getting 88 people staying in the parking spots all day long. So, Cody, go ahead.
Right. Yeah, so a shared parking arrangement, this is a widely practiced urban planning principle, especially in like a downtown development district, like a central business district, right? That is what our downtown area is. So a long time ago, the city decided as a whole that the city of McHenry would be the purveyor of public parking spaces. And so what that does is that we create a shared parking arrangement, parking system in the downtown area. So what does that mean, right? So the best example is that if you give two uses, such as like office development or a restaurant development, put them together, and they're both sharing that same parking area, and that when the office use is in, productivity during, the office is 9 to 5, they're in turn at the same time also, simultaneously patronize businesses, those restaurants at the same time, while not occupying an additional parking space. So this allows you to maximize the amount of different mixed uses in the downtown while taking advantage of the very limited space that is available in our downtown area. So as the city of McHenry begins to grow over time, the shared parking arrangement is the most effective and efficient model that a city can have in order to approach downtown development and density overall. I'd be happy to answer any questions on that.
Any questions for Cody?
The other thing I just wanted to point out, in addition, and this I may be stepping on Dave's toes here, but one of the things that he has mentioned is that in an apartment building, his lease rates are very, very high. Most of his apartment rentals are between what did he say, 92 to 95% occupied for the most part. But there's always somebody moving in or somebody moving out, as Dave said. So you're never, even though you have 88 units in the building, you're never going to have 88 occupied units all at the same time. And Cody made a point earlier, which is people work also different shifts. So just because additional, kind of office worker is 9 to 5, that doesn't mean that everyone living in the development would be a 9 to 5 type of a person. So.
Correct. If I could also add to these points real briefly, one is, as Cody has described, the uses. So comparing the use of a residential to a commercial place of business, those two peak periods of parking demand vary and are not consistent with each other. Secondly, the hope and the desire is that I move to the downtown area, I come home from work, I park my car, and I walk get something to eat. So now all of a sudden I've parked and I am not only using the residential use, but I'm also using the commercial use. So it is a very common practice. All traffic engineers are very familiar with it, with the concept of shared, and we are experienced with it and welcome it. And if you start to restrict your parking spaces to specific uses, that's when you start to lose control or lose the ability for that shared parking. So that's why I had stated that we are against, quote, reserved parking, whether it be reserved for residential use or reserved for commercial use.
Okay. All right. Alderman Santee, go ahead.
Okay, and you're asking about
the height, the building, parking.
Well, the smaller development, the 3-story and 3+1 is just, it's, I'm sorry, the smaller development is just lost. It's not worth even discussing. Just because we're losing the parking spaces.
3+1 isn't
Yeah.
in favor by
Yeah.
anybody on the city council, so that's
So, yeah, okay. But to my statement, I don't comprehend what some thought is going on here, because we've been developing this since '05, and we're attracting people to the downtown area. We're attracting them to activities. We're attracting them to shop. We're attracting them to enjoy a meal. And we have a large piece of land that's undeveloped right across the creek. And at some point, I don't know if it's this gentleman or anyone else that's going to come to us and with a proposal, but you can bet there's going to be a certain amount of floor space that's going to be on it. And if you think otherwise, I don't feel you're looking at the whole picture here. I mean, and once again, a developer's come to us. He's coming to us with the owner of the property stating, yes, I want to do this. Now, that doesn't mean it's a done deal, but, you know, that's a partnership. And we need to respect that and look at that. And, you know, I want to see this moving forward. And I just don't, it's, in my mind, it's, to a certain extent, it's incomprehensible that we can't take a look at this and understand it and work with it. I don't like the picture that he showed me tonight, okay? That's unacceptable to me. But I know that can be worked on, and that can be tweaked. I get it. I'm not very happy with 82 feet either. But guess what? I think what we're looking at in this downtown environment is going to be something that I'm going to say that other developers are going to come to us with this type of concept, whether it's him or someone else. And if you don't see that, if you don't visually look forward in the future and see that, because we started it back in '05, you know, I just have concerns there. I know you needed my 2 cents, but that was it. I apologize for going too far, but yes.
Thank you. So at this time, now that we got some insight from the council, we're going to go to public comment. You want to do that now? No. Let's do public comment. At this time, Nancy Pike, once again, you have 3 minutes. No clapping on either side.
I promise to behave myself.
Thank you, Nancy. I appreciate it.
Can you hear?
We hear you.
Okay. I'm here because I saw the article in the paper and wanted to know more about this presentation and what was going on. I also would like to say that I've heard a lot of the aldermen talking about the mass of the building. That's what concerns me as well, because one of the leading points going into the downtown area is things like a landmark school sitting up on the hill that kind of represents the individuality of our own community. And if you look at the view of it, what you'll see with a 6-story development is, I don't know how well you can see that, but it's a big lump of a building. And you know, when you deal with 19th century business districts, one of the things they have going for them is that they're a human scale, and people gather in front of the buildings. It's welcoming. I've never seen so many people walking dogs in downtown as I have with all of the developments and so forth that are going on in those original buildings, because they invite community and they invite people getting to talk to each other and knowing each other personally. And I think those are the people that serve on committees and run for public office. But I think these downtown areas promote that sort of thing. Always in a case like this, the elephant in the room will be parking. And the issue always becomes, how much do you want to give up in order to have parking, and what is it you're going to give up? It looks as if half the west side area is going to be, on the west side of the street, is all going to be parking in some form or another. That leaves a limited number of original buildings still there, less of a reason to come downtown, unless all want to look like Des Plaines or something like that. So I worry about the entranceway when you have two massive buildings on from the south entrance onto that street, and that really does bother me. Thank you.
Yeah, Melanie Dearden. I live on Park Street, so I'm right in the middle of all the downtown. And our house was built in 1912. We've been here 17 years. I was listening, some of these gentlemen here said exactly what I've been thinking about as far as concrete jungle, parking, all that. Somebody mentioned something about the future development of Green Street. Is that parking on Green Street going to go away? Right now, Green Street is an accident waiting to be happened. It's too congested. You can't get through. People are not using the crosswalks. My husband and I were down there on Sunday. They're jumping out of the cars. The noise has gotten out of hand. I feel like McHenry, the town of McHenry, is only from Green Street to Riverside, where all the little huts are, and it's so congested and so clustered. And there are a handful of residents, like myself, that have been there a long time. We've got the driver's school, we've got the landmark school, we've got the high school, we've got the old people's home, and I just feel like everything's just being dumped in one spot. McHenry's a big enough town to spread all over, but I can't imagine any more stuff on Green Street. That's my comment.
Good evening. I'm Beatrice Walter from Ward 4. To everyone here, what I've heard is that some city council members or staff want to basically spend $2 million for a Green Street parking garage on someone else's property who may likely not instead pay us impact fees to construct the tallest building there. In my opinion, acceptable city improvements and expenditures would be the sorely needed maintenance and upgrades in neighborhood parks and also traffic lights along state routes in the city limits. Please do not blame IDOT and tell me that you cannot take care of it or even find someone who will. I'm very concerned about the proximity of the 1111 Green Street development to the school committee and the possibility that in the future this building could become run down, partially or totally abandoned like so many others around the city. I'm concerned that the beauty of that Green Street area will never be recovered if this development goes through and that we paid someone to desecrate it. I'm not against development, but this isn't right for our area. Please, let's ask, must we continue to economically, physically, and aesthetically put our city at risk for yet another downtown building or business developer? Thank you for your time.
Good evening, I'm Bobby Bainey at 3413 Walk-In, also in the heart of downtown McHenry. I think it's very exciting that Shodine came in with an opportunity to further produce progression in our downtown area. We have businesses that are seeking spaces to come to in McHenry. I don't think anybody in this room can say you haven't felt the change of energy and momentum since we have changed the way we're developing our downtown. I live right there near the corner of Green Street. I don't think it's a hot mess. I think it's amazing to see all the people that are visiting our community, coming from other towns to hang out on Miller Point, to have an actual experience in McHenry. You don't just go out for dinner, you go for a walk, you watch the sunset, you visit other businesses, you go to their bars. It's exactly what we've been talking about creating in this community for years, and it's really disappointing to hear so many city council members want to put a stop to that momentum. I actually think that corner is a perfect place to put a building like that. It's right across the street from another building that everybody had some concerns about. It was too high. They didn't also have enough parking for every unit and resident that was going to live in River Place. And if you look at that space, it's so well taken care of. It's so vibrant. There's wonderful businesses in there, wonderful people living in there that walk their dogs and find places to park their cars when things are busy. Are we talking about the 1% yet, or can I not talk about that yet? Not yet. All right. So we can talk about funding it later, but I want to say thanks to Vic Santee for bringing up how we have to be looking into the future, and to Alderwoman Miller. There have been many things we've been concerned about in this town, and when we look back, they've turned out to be wonderful additions, and I think this will be too. We need to have parking. This partnership is an excellent opportunity to create that, and we'll have more people living in the area to support McHenry, attracting more people to come into our community versus putting a stop to development and progression here in McHenry. I can talk about the 1%? Okay, well, now I'm gotten not a lot of time. So I know there's a proposal to put on a 1% tax on restaurants and bars. I am definitely in favor of that for one primary reason. It doesn't affect everybody in the community. This city council was fine with putting a tax on our utilities that affected senior citizens, people of low income. This particular way of funding this project would only be applying to people who have the means to go and support our bars and restaurants. It's an optional thing. It is a minor increment, $100 restaurant tab. It's going to cost you an extra $1. If you can afford to go out to eat and hang out at the bars, you can probably afford it. Thanks.
At this time, there's no one else that signed in. If you'd like to publicly speak, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for public record.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. How are you? I appreciate all the effort everybody's putting in to try to make this town better. My name is Tony Esposito. I live in Riverwalk Townhomes. What hasn't been discussed, which really concerns me, is the issue of the TIF. My understanding, there's a one TIF currently, and according to my tax bill, I'm contributing, my wife and I are contributing $11,494.42 to the TIF. And the developer wants money from the TIF. There isn't another TIF. That's the only TIF that I'm aware of. So what I want to understand is, why am I paying this money for this developer to build something when the parking sounds to me like a mess? If you want to build a parking area that's going to help the businesses and help everything grow, then that's what should be built. But we shouldn't be helping a developer build something that's basically going to be parking for the tenants in his building. Okay? Now, you want to build something within the ordinances? He's got a right to do it. He wants to make a deal with the Newmans? He's got a right to do it. Now you're talking about if it's going to be so high, you got to move it back 2 feet. So how are you going to build this building if you keep moving it back 2 feet? So now what are you looking at? Some kind of variance that's going to be ridiculous just to accommodate the developer? You know, I've been here since, I'm an original owner since '04, and I like to see things progress as well. But I haven't heard one discussion till I come up here, and you've given me the opportunity to speak, about what's going to happen with my money that I'm putting to this TIF that should be used to help the community grow, not help a developer. With all good respect, you want to build something, God bless you, then build it, but build it without our money, because the parking facility is what's going to help the businesses. That's what's going to help. That's what's going to help ease all the congestion that's there. So that's my humble opinion, and thank you very much for hearing me out.
Normally I wouldn't respond, but just so for the record, this property would be looking at being de-TIFed, so it'd be taken out of the TIF and then re-TIFed. So this property, the money that is the $6 million that would be going to the development of this piece of property would actually be going from the re-TIF. So I just wanted to clarify that just so the public is aware.
Okay, so I'll reply. There is no current TIF to re-TIF. The only TIF that I know that has money in it is our TIF. And I'm understanding that that money can be used. So I don't know how long it's going to take to re-TIF. Is it going to take 2 years? You got to go to the state of Illinois and re-TIF? I see a pot of money that's available for the developer, and in that pot of money is my money. And by the way, each building where I live contributes about $46,000 to that TIF. We have 4 units, okay? So $46,000 per building goes into that TIF. In my community where I live, it's like $230,000 a year into that TIF.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you.
Also, I'd like to say the homes that, the townhomes that are there now is actually built with TIF money, which is what got that project off the ground. So I just wanted to say that as well. Sir,
Wayne
state your
Smith.
name and address for public record.
Wayne Smith, 4601 Haydenport.
Thank you.
I'd like to know how we're gonna finance this. Is this gonna be bonds?
You want to go ahead and respond to that?
Well, so obviously we have a couple of slides. Maybe it would be helpful, I don't want to
write that down
interrupt.
at the end?
Yeah,
You wanna do that? Okay.
yeah.
We'll go ahead and respond to that at the end of the public comment.
Okay, because the woman said that the project was gonna be approximately estimated at $1.5 million. That's when interest rates were at 0.25%. They're substantially higher now. Also, this young lady that was saying how wonderful the restaurants are, the peak has already happened. Restaurants are losing business. They're already starting to feel the pressure. So she can be as exuberant as she wants, but she doesn't know what's going on.
Can you not attack anyone else that's in here? Just don't attack other people if they had.
I didn't
they have
attack.
Their...
I
Okay.
said facts.
Thank you. Mike?
My name is Mike Melly. I own Jexels. I live at 1600 Anthony Lane in Lakemore. I'm for it, frankly. I mean, I look at it in a lot of different ways. I think if I look at the tall bank building outside my building every day, had they thought about parking down below it, probably that bank would be occupied with businesses after it was no longer used. So it sat there, and now it's not usable until it gets torn down, and no one can agree what to do with that building either. So it's a beautiful building. But it's sad it can't be used. But probably why it hasn't been used is where are people going to park? Right? It's not an ugly building. I'm sure they can make some changes to the outside to make it more pretty. This building, I know Ned for 20 years tried to do something with it. It's been sitting there empty doing nothing but rotting away. This is a pretty nice plan. On top of that, it's got 88 more people, 88 more potential shoppers, 88 more potential diners. They aren't just going to go to that restaurant, but a lot of us will go to that restaurant. We need the parking. Shared parking has always been beneficial downtown. I mean, we could go all around another hearing and another hearing and another hearing. I'm a restaurant. I'm feeling the pinch. I don't even want to see $1 more on any of my checks. But honestly, it's cheap. Because what it can do besides this, I think everybody sitting in these seats have proven what they've done with the changes in McHenry. Because I remember McHenry with a decrepit theater, and most of Green Street closed because nobody wanted to do anything. Nobody wanted to take a chance. So I think you should go for it. Take the chance. I mean, we're looking at a bank building that can't do anything, and it's a big old building doing nothing. And it should be making everybody money. Plus, I don't know exactly how rentals go, but people live in those, so I'm assuming there must generate tax dollars from the residents. I don't know, I'm assuming. And, you know, any building can go empty or vacant, I guess. But I think you guys have made some pretty good decisions overall. Okay? That's all I gotta say.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Please state your name and address for public record.
Sure. My name's Kirk Donald. I live at 1217 Acre Lane, Johnsburg. And my question is police protection. I believe Sue Miller mentioned a ladder tall enough to reach the top of the building. I didn't see any area where a helicopter could land in certain emergencies. How are the police going to get into this building? And my other question is, with the parking garage the way it is, okay, I mean, it's a perfect spot in my mind. You know, I watch a lot of forensic files. It is that for a robbery or a shootout, you know. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name's Eric Syverson. So on the height of the building, my biggest concern was the height and the fire department being able to respond, and I hadn't thought about the hospital being even taller. I thought this would have been the tallest building in McHenry. So if you want to see more development downtown, it's going to be these 4 to 6 story tall mixed-use buildings. My concern is on the parking. International Building Code says there should be 2 per residential unit. So city code requires them to add 1 per residential unit, but that's assuming that the other 88 are parked in public parking. So there's also the restaurant. International Building Code says you need 1 parking stall per 100 square feet restaurant space, so you're going to need another 32 stalls there. So I think the problem is that this doesn't add parking. This actually adds 90 more cars to downtown that you need to find a place to park. As far as spending the $2 million to build the 157 stalls, it's not spending $2 million to build 157 stalls. It's spending $8 million because there's $6 million TIF dollars and $2 million in the direct grants to actually lose 90 parking spaces. So the development, yeah, I think it'd be great, but needs to be not done with taxpayer dollars, and that the city council should look at, like Alderman Glab had mentioned, doing something across the creek there with that $8 million rather than spending it on something that's not going to benefit the public.
Thank you.
Well, because Vic guilted me into coming up here, I'm happy to be here. I'm Brian Cunat, by the way. I'm a McHenry resident for 67 years and paying taxes most of that time. Not all of it, most of it. I did want to mention that Ned Newman and the Cunats have been friends for many, many years. I got to know Ned when I was still in Boy Scouts, and have always been a friend of Ned's for the many years that he lived here and contributed to the city. He was also a big fan of the Riverwalk. Very, very instrumental and hardworking on the Riverwalk, and he's certainly a large motivation why we donated $1 million to the Riverwalk, because we felt it was really worthwhile, and I still do, and I'm very happy to see that the project is continuing, and look forward to it continuing west along the creek as well. When we had the original planning of the project, we were looking at originally a building that was going to be somewhat like 6 stories or so. Ned said he did not want anything that would block the view of Landmark. It was very important to him. We looked at a parking structure that was 2 stories, and we did not have really any room for public parking. We were looking at having all tenant parking and then have some paid parking during the day where people could pay to park there if they were going to use it for commercial use. I appreciate a lot of what the developer is putting forth. I know it's not easy to put together a project like this, and yes, the higher you go up, it is going to get cheaper and more economically to make it feasible. I'm concerned, though, that the number one we've heard now for a long time is parking is a problem. Parking is a problem when the building got built across the street. It was not enough at that time. That problem has continued. If you're going to be adding a restaurant to this particular development, which I think is a great idea, having a restaurant there, that's going to only add more parking. You're going to add the residents, and I agreed with somebody, we have a lot of apartments, and there are very few people that rent one of our apartments that don't have 2 cars. And 3 is sometimes squeezed in there as well. But outside, of course, we're not in the city center section. It is required that we have 2 parking spaces per apartment. If in the city it's different, then that's fine, whatever. But I'm just really concerned. I think you're going to be not solving your parking problem with this particular development. So that's all I want to say. Thanks.
And staff and I agree with that as well. This is not a fix for sure. Sir, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Dennis Finn. I live at 3422 Waukegan Road in the Riverwalk Townhome. At 80 feet, this proposal meets not only my perception of a high-rise, but exceeds the definition of high-rise per the International Building Code, which is 75 feet. Do we really want a high-rise on Green Street? High-rise buildings in other municipalities are built near the train stations. I think the City Council believes a property like this must be built in Henry. Maybe consider looking at developing an area near the train station. That would likely spur, or potentially could spur, private economic development down Main Street, which is sorely needed. The aesthetics of what's proposed, I agree, Mr. Santi, Shodine would have to do a much better job than that. Looks like a building you'd put like at a highway interchange, right now. But parking, do we really have to give away our cherished Green Street for more parking? I don't know the facts, right, but I see a big parking area between Green Street and 120. Do anything there? All options, I think, need to be considered before making a final decision. This is forever. But on a final note, all I've personally noticed as far as new housing in McHenry is development of apartment complexes like behind Aldi and down Route 31, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think the City Council was on the right track, however, with River Place back in the day. From what I understand, River Place was originally built in and around an economic downturn, yes, but was initially built as a condominium complex. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, of course, it's filled with apartment rentals. And in spite of all the superlatives of, like, a negative connotation associated with what most of us who live near Green Street identified tonight, I believe most of our existing residents who pay and have paid, of course, property taxes and sales taxes, and TIF or otherwise, would be more open to these development ideas if the development plans included property ownership. We want new residents to have a stake in this great city of McHenry, just like the rest of us. Let's see some proposals offering an opportunity for new residents to continue to put some skin in the game, just like the rest of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for public record.
Bob Mecca, 3320 Waukegan. I have a little different approach. I taught master's class in finance at a major university, so I'm a numbers guy, and I want to talk about the 1%. We think about 1% sales tax is no big deal, but tell that to people that are on fixed income. Everybody here will know, I'm willing to bet everybody here will know we're in an inflation. We're not in a recession, we're in an inflation. Timing is everything. Timing is important. The way I understand it, part of this deal includes 1% tax. I think the timing sucks. Talk to people that go to the grocery store about inflation. Talk to people that just paid their insurance premiums, car insurance, home insurance, liability insurance. Talk to people for buying clothing for their kids, going to a restaurant. Now it's a 3.5% surcharge if you pay with a credit card. This 1% piles on to this inflation, and it is a big deal, and it should not It should not be part of this. Whatever you guys decide, don't increase taxes. We are already increased. The federal government is talking about increasing our federal income tax. You look at your real estate tax lately, that's not going down. So when you talk about, well, it's just 1% that we're going to add on that's part of this package, please think in terms of inflation and all the other taxes we pay. How about food? How about prescription medicines? Insurance, health insurance, homeowners insurance, home improvement costs, labor and materials, higher education. Have you gassed your car lately? This is all a burden on us. And the last 1% increase is going to throw some people over the edge.
Good evening, Council. Pam Goff, 3615 West Friend Avenue. I have lived in that area, that neighborhood, since 1960. My folks have moved up here in 1958, lived in the same neighborhood since that time. Sue, I applaud you for bringing up the hospital, but that hospital sits way out in Bull Valley, so it's way out there. We are not Oswego, we are not Des Plaines, we are not any of those towns. Towns nonetheless. We don't need a towering apartment building right smack on Boone Creek. I can see that in my backyard. I live on Boone Creek. And Boone Creek in the middle of winter, let's all remember, drops. And we have a nice little stream with mud on each side. So we need to remember that when we go to putting in this nice river walk up that side. So we really need to think about what we're blocking, landmark, and we need to think about the creek in the middle of winter when people want to try to walk that boardwalk and stuff. So we really need to think, is this what we need? I think we can do better. I think we need to think about it and talk about it before we do anything concrete. We really need to do better, because you know what? I've lived here my whole life, in that neighborhood, and this is my town, and I will defend her with everything I have. Thank you.
Would there be anyone else in the public that would like to make a public comment? Sir, Richard. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I knew Rich was going to let you go, so I'll just do it for him.
Good evening. My name is Nicholas Finney. I live in Bernigui, 6805 Bernigui Circle in McHenry. Been here for 18 years in McHenry. So a few comments that I have is something is going to go in that spot, and you guys decide what goes in there that's going to be beneficial to the city, but we should not fund it with our taxes. If a business comes here, they should invest in this community. We should not fund them because they come here to make money. Okay, why should we spend our tax money for that? Number two question is, Dave, what type of tenants do you expect to come and rent these places? Mostly millennials, younger type of people?
We have in our other buildings, we have a wide variety of tenants, everything from somebody coming back from college that just graduated college and lives in the area and want to live in the area, to it is an elevator building with parking inside that the empty nester wants to live in an environment like that, and call it an elevator building. So that spectrum offers it's a wide spectrum of who our tenants are.
Oh, thank you. So I would venture that this type of lifestyle in the city suits some folks, younger folks, like millennial generation, X, Y, Z, whatever they are, and the lifestyle that they have here is that they like to be more towards a sustainable lifestyle, and they make electric cars. What's your plan of installing electric chargers in the garage for them to charge their cars? What's happened to that?
there is a state building code that we have to follow that makes allocations, or we have to meet requirements for electric vehicles. And we will be meeting that building code, which meets the requirements for those.
And my third comment is, I think from the public perspective, I would be very interested in looking at the cost-benefit analysis first. Before, I mean, you guys talk about height and width and everything else, but where are the numbers to meet? We need to see the numbers to see what's the benefit to the city in terms of dollars spent if we fund it with taxes, but what are we going to get back? Okay, so cost-benefit analysis is very important. If that can be disclosed at some point so that we can take a look at that, would be very, very beneficial.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Rich Isley. My wife, my son, myself, we own River Place Apartments, which has been brought up quite often today. Parking. If you're going to build something, you're going to have to make parking accessible for the people. Right now, the businesses are thriving down there. Yeah, economy, as you mentioned, is getting tougher and all that. But you take away the parking, you're going to kill the businesses. You guys, the city, has done a magnificent job in developing downtown. As Mike Dumel said, not too many years ago, it was almost a ghost town. When I took over his property, the theater was empty. There was no DC Cobbs. Half the stores were empty. You guys have done a great job. Now's the time not to go backwards and hurt the area by not having parking. Whether this building is built or not, that's between the city, Ned Newman, and this gentleman. But if it's going to be built, you have to do the parking with it. Otherwise, it's useless. You're going to kill the businesses that are there, and it doesn't help anything. As far as tax revenue, the gentleman just mentioned, more people live in the city is going to bring more taxes in there. Cities, it's income. The vacant lot brings nothing. I don't know what else to say, but, you need to do the parking. I understand all the concerns, but, think it through carefully.
Hey, Rich, if you don't mind, the ratio on your rentals, is it a 1-to-1?
It's basically 1-to-1, and if you want to go back, when this building was developed, I wasn't there, and I've been told many times we screwed up, we didn't do the parking right, by many people. At that time, I don't know what happened there, but I would have liked if we had more parking on our property. That's why we rent the space, Ed Newman's property space. We rent that from him, and we also rent a line of parking spaces over by the Riverside Villages. The Newman's property, we rent that basically for the commercial use. Riverside is basically overflow parking for our residents, our guests. Within our property, ourselves, garages, and our parking spaces, we have adequate parking for our residents. Some of them choose to pay, they pay $50 for a parking space, $150 for a garage. Most of them rent the space. There's a couple of vacant spaces. They'd rather not pay and just walk a half a block. And as far as residents, the gentleman was asking what type of residents we have. They plan on having. We have a lot of empty nesters that are moving into the building. They're giving up the house, and they want to be in this downtown type atmosphere. They enjoy going down to Buddy's and like to walk down the Riverwalk. What you guys done at Miller Point is magnificent. It draws people from everywhere. Again, you're doing that, but then you need to have the parking.
Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it. Anyone else that would like to make a public comment? All right. Thank you very much. Suzanne, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Thanks. So before I dive into the slides on the financing, obviously some spoilers. You've seen me flipping the slides back and forth, and we've talked about some of this stuff already. But I wanted to take an opportunity, and I'll, at some point, Mr. Patzel's going to have the opportunity to respond to the questions that came his way. But just in terms of some of the things that residents brought up. First of all, when we talked about the TIF district, the concept for this property, this development, would be to pull this particular property out of the existing downtown TIF. There's been no conversation about taking money from the existing TIF fund to fund the development at 1111. This would be a totally separate TIF, and we already have actually a TIF consultant who's working on that D-TIF and re-TIF, as we're calling it. So basically, it's like a donut hole, right? You pull out the property you're developing, and then it basically resets the clock for 23 years, which is the life of a TIF fund. And the concept there is the $6 million that the developer is requesting out of the TIF. That's the amount that new TIF is going to generate over 23 years. So the value of that TIF goes straight back into the development of the property that it's coming from, essentially.
Excuse me, to correct one thing, and that's the fact that according to Friedman, you can move one fund to the other fund from the TIF.
You can. It is legal. However, there has not been a conversation with the City Council about that concept.
I just so we know that it is open.
It is legal, and as you can see, there's a couple of. Why don't I just go through this slide real quick since it's up? So I just obviously hit on the first point. So really, that $6 million is $6 million out of the TIF. That's a self-funding mechanism that goes back into the development of that particular property. The $2 million that has been requested in a city grant, quote unquote, there is purely, again, for the public parking. And we looked at a couple of different ways that could potentially be paid for if the city opted to move forward, and $2 million was really the number. We do have adequate funding right now in the General Fund Reserve Fund. With that said, it's not staff's recommendation, nor do I believe the City Council is in favor necessarily of paying that $2 million out of the reserves. We have a lot of needs coming up. If you think about the Route 31 expansion, that's going to be $8 million. We have some small component of that in the bank dedicated for those funds, but we have that, and then there's some additional things on the next slide that I'll show you that are unfunded projects that we have coming up. So really the best option that we have at this point is to bond that $2 million. But there are a number of different ways that we could kind of structure a payback on that. We have $611,000 in bonds and loans that are going to be paid off over the next couple of years. So those are annual payments that, in theory, if the City Council opted not to enact this tax that we were talking about a little bit, there's going to be some kind of room in the budget for that. We were looking forward to having those funds available to spend on other things, but we have a lot of competing needs, obviously. The other one that's listed here is the bond payoff for the original Riverwalk bill. I don't know which phase that was, but phase one of the Riverwalk is finally coming off the books at the end of this year. So again, that's money that's aside in the other downtown TIF and is paying those costs. But if the City Council wanted to have a conversation about moving funds back and forth, that's an option. And again, not staff's recommendation. The additional recommendation here is to search for new revenue sources. And, as I said to Alderman Glab earlier, this is my first budget, right? So I've been the city administrator here for 5 months. And one of the things that we've identified and the City Council has requested is that staff be looking for alternate sources of revenue for a variety of things that we have coming up. And obviously this parking garage need is just another need layered on top of that. So the recommendation that we came up with as staff is a food and beverage tax, as has been referred to earlier. This is a very common tax across the state of Illinois. Many municipalities have this. Generally, it is between 1% and 2%. So staff's recommendation is to start this off at a 1%, and see how it goes. And that would generate approximately, our estimate are $880,000 a year. If we talk about bonding $2 million, we had a very kind of high-level quote come in from our bond consultant. We're estimating that would cost about $160,000 a year on an annual basis for 20 years in bond payments. So if after that $160,000, this tax would generate an additional $720,000 a year that could be utilized for our projects. And this is funding that's sorely needed for a lot of things that we have coming up. I've listed just a few of them here, just to give the City Council an idea of what we could be talking about, right? So we have streetscape improvements. As Mr. Patzelt referred to earlier, there's some contemplation about doing some streetscaping along Green Street to make it a more pedestrian-friendly, kind of better place to be, more of a draw for people. But we actually are talking about doing the same thing on Riverside Drive. That's already been engineered, and the cost is between $3 and $3.5 million for that work, and we have no funding source. We, as Alderman Glab referred to earlier, we have needs for additional street repairs. It's my understanding that we've made some great strides in terms of funding our street program over the past few years. We actually now have some dedicated revenue sources for that in terms of the utility tax. But we still are, there's more that we could do. So potentially this additional funding could be dedicated, or a portion of it could be dedicated to that. An estimate is $7,000 gets you 2.5 miles road resurfacing, as just to give you an idea. We've got some sidewalk work that we would love to be able to do, but we have no funding source for it. We have a Parks Master Plan that's taking place right now. That I'm sure that there will be some projects that come out of that are going to be recommended. And so we have a lot of needs as a city over the next few years, and staff believes that this food and beverage tax would be a good way to kind of raise some additional funding. It's a pass-through revenue that would be collected by the bars and the restaurants. As we talked about earlier, it's a 1% tax, so you go out to dinner, you spend $100, it's $1. I don't know about anyone else in the room, but I will tell you, when I think about where I want to go out to dinner, I think about what I want for dinner, and I think about which place has the best pizza or whatever it is. I don't think about the dollar in taxes. I don't compare municipality versus municipality and figure out who has a 1% tax rate that's lower, right? And it's a use-based tax, because the parking garage and the streets, they all go, it's infrastructure that supports people who are visiting town, who live here, are driving on the streets, are coming to your downtown. And so, from an equity standpoint, it was staff's determination that this was a good way to raise those funds that were needed, because people can select to go out to dinner or not go out to dinner. If you're making the determination that you're going out to dinner, you've already decided that you have disposable income to do that. The list of eligible items is included here as well, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about, right? So it's prepared food and drinks for immediate consumption. So you go out to dinner or restaurant, it's everything you eat and drink, right? It's also any catering orders. If you drive through at McDonald's, that would be included. And then staff has recommended communities do this in different ways. You can do it either just if you buy a beer at a restaurant and it's passed over the counter or whatnot, that would be included. Or there are some communities that charge it for alcoholic beverages across the board, and so that would be the City Council's determination on how to structure that. It does not apply, at least in theoretical sense, to the common grocery items that may be prepared on site, but not for immediate consumption. So we're talking about, deli foods, and I think the issue of rotisserie chickens was raised. Those types of items were not contemplated in this conversation, but again, the City Council would have the ability to structure this in any way that they wanted to do that. So that's the kind of skinny on the food and beverage tax, and so we'll have an opportunity to talk through that momentarily. But I would also like to take the opportunity to go through this point by point on some things that I thought staff could provide some additional background on. So the first thing was the TIF. As I mentioned, it's a new TIF. It doesn't impact the existing TIF, and it's a self-funded mechanism over the 23-year term. There was a question that was raised about police protection, and whether or not a new development there would be a safe location, and so I'll have Chief Burke maybe respond to that one.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be any issue with police safety there. I guess I would also add a note. Chief Forrest is here, but I believe the ladder truck's 105 feet, so it will reach the top of that building off of Green Street and most definitely off of Waukegan. Correct?
Yes. We would want to see what the setback would end up being.
For sure.
In general.
Yeah, and then that building would have sprinklers and standstill piping for firefighting as well, making it extremely safe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, appreciate that. The next item.
Excuse me.
Yep.
Chief, question. You say the fire department has a vehicle tall enough for that building,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
How many?
Chief Horace, maybe you could come up for a quick second.
How many do they have? One. So they have one vehicle, and if that vehicle's down, let the place burn down, right?
Why don't we let Chief Horace from the fire department answer that
Okay.
for you?
I'm just asking.
How you doing, Chief?
Good evening. So, to answer the councilman's question, so the fire department, we have one ladder tower or ladder truck that's located at our Station 1 right here at 31 and 120. So in our procedure, to answer your question, if our ladder truck is out of service for maintenance, then we would have a ladder truck from a surrounding community come in to assist us, and that's part of a pre-planned system that we have.
And how long would that take, Bill? How long would that take to,
It would depend on the availability of that department. So typically for us, the next closest ladder truck that we would have come in would be from the city of Crystal Lake.
you know as well as I do that every minute counts.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Yep. So the next item that I wanted to respond to was the gentleman who brought up some items related to the International Building Code. The only thing I would say, and I can kick this over to Ross if he has, Director Polarecki, if he has thoughts as well. But anything that is built in the city of McHenry will be built to codes as required.
That is correct. Obviously, we adopt a set of international building codes, but parking requirements are actually zoning related and not building code. So the International Building Code does not dictate how much parking. It's all based on use. So that's what we get. And parking ratios have been mentioned, the 1-to-1 in the downtown or the 2-to-1, 2.0 on the outskirts of town.
Thank you. We also had someone who referenced, Mr. Cunhat, I believe, the additional sites that are in the downtown. I think it's important to understand that this site at 1111 is not going to solve the parking problem. Everyone knows that, right? But what we're looking for is incremental improvements. If we allow something, if the city council allows something to be built on that site that has no public parking component, it's a step backwards. And I think everyone understands that. There is obviously, you can see, a giant surface parking lot right now at the site that we're calling Green and Elm. There will be, at some point, a development on that property as well, and there will be an additional opportunity there to add public parking. So just because we don't fix the problem with this development at 1111 doesn't mean that we don't have future opportunities to kind of work in a positive direction. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, and then finally, I wanted to point out, there was a gentleman who referenced the fact that the developer needs to be investing in the community. Just so everyone has the background, the development that's being contemplated for 1111 North Green is a $30 to $35 million development. And so the city, yes, there is a buy-in from the city perspective for this public parking that we're asking for, but the development overall is a significant development and it's expensive development, and there would be skin in the game for any developer who built something like what we're talking about. So that's all I had.
David, is there anything else you want to add? Any questions that people had?
I do not. I think Suzanne has covered them clearly. Thanks.
Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to open up for discussion to the council again. Any questions, comments? Alderman Bassey?
I actually put a little analysis together, and I'd like to share it with guys. Is that okay?
Sure.
Wonderful. It's a little presentation. Thank you. Hey, Dave, can you move us? Can you scoot a little? Yeah, I went all out. And I spent my own money on this, by the way. So, this is all in relation to parking. Can you see? Okay. And if you'll bear with me, because I think everything here is pretty important, I do want to read
what I've got. Okay, this is about the 1111 Green Street development. As we know, it's going to be 4 floors of apartments, and then that'll be 12 studios, 36 one-bedroom, 40 bedroom. And then below that will be 157 parking spaces and a 3,200 to 3,500 square foot restaurant space that we haven't really discussed too much. So for sufficient parking of this, we're going to need 88 spots for the apartments, 6 handicap spots, which is required by, which is required by the state law for any apartment or any parking that is 151 to 200 spaces in a parking garage or off-street parking. We're also going to be replacing the 46 parking spots that were lost that the other apartment people are currently renting. And we again have to discuss the 3,200 to 3,500 square foot restaurants. So I put together a few scenarios. And we talked about one-to-one. And thank you for letting me do this. Parking one-to-one. 1 apartment, 1 parking spot. And that is pretty typical if you are in a city such as Milwaukee. But this is what McHenry has chosen, so that's what we're going to do. So we've got 157 parking spots available, minus 88 that will be used for the units because one-to-one, and that will leave 69 public parking spots. Now we have to minus 6 handicap spots. I'm guessing 2 on each level. That is required.
Alderman, if you're asking me, the 6 parking spaces, technically those handicap spaces are inclusive of the 1.0. A handicapped person could be living within a residential unit. So we don't see that you would be adding the 6 to the 88.
Okay, but
and that's not required by code.
Okay. But then we're also going to minus the 46 parking spots that are currently being rented. So that leaves us 17 parking spots available. So that's higher than your 5 that you had said. So we're doing better there. And then we still have not considered the restaurant that's 3,200 to 3,500 square feet. Where are these people going to park? So by giving Shodine the $2 million, the 17 parking spaces are going to cost the taxpayer $117,000, $647.06 per space. So my second one, McHenry, as we learned, they are exempt, downtown is exempt, and they only have to do one-to-one. But outside of McHenry, it's 1.5 per apartment. So looking at it that way, and this also is in a situation where you do not have public transportation. So again, we're looking at 1.5. So we have 157 parking spaces. We're going to minus 132 spaces required for the apartments because it's 1.5, and that will leave 25 public parking spaces. So from there, we're going to minus 6 handicap parking spots, and, you know, we can fudge on that. I'm all right with that, and that leaves 19 public parking spaces available. So from there, we're going to minus the 46 that are being used by the other apartment, which leaves negative 27 parking spaces available. In addition, we still have not adjusted any parking for the restaurant. So using this ratio, giving the $2 million, we're actually losing 27 parking spaces. Cody, thoughts?
So, I haven't seen your numbers, but my numbers would disagree with yours. I would say that
Not here.
the city of Crystal Lake, is also a 1-to-1 parking ratio in the downtown. In fact, that's where our ordinance, where we got the numbers from, when we did them. But a 1-to-1 parking ratio, for residential units, would be obviously for 88 residences, it'd be 88 spaces. In addition to a 3,200 square foot commercial restaurant, that's about, we'll just round up, be 10 parking spaces. And so you're looking at overall parking requirement, the city of McHenry's parking ordinance is, 98 parking spaces. And so there's currently 157 parking spaces. So 57 plus the two additional spaces, that's 59 parking spaces. 59, and you minus 47 from that, and then that's what you get overall. You're gaining you have a net gain of parking spaces in the downtown. I'm not sure where the negative number is coming from.
Factoring into the 46 that are currently being used, and based on the packet that was also included in Suzanne's numbers.
And just to clarify that, the 46 parking spaces are not publicly owned parking spaces, those are privately owned by the Newmans, and that they are leased for cost to the property owners across the street, but they don't enforce, to my knowledge, any type of towing if anybody just parked there currently. So technically tomorrow, if this development didn't go in, and if, say, the worst case scenario, a storage garage goes in there, there'd be 0 parking spaces on that site.
Okay. Well, all right, here's my last. This one is a very aggressive one. And this one is, oh, thank you so much. Tim O'Brien is the Senior Managing Director of Legacy Partners, and he says, quote, "We look for 1 parking space per bedroom plus guest parking at 25%. It hasn't changed during pandemic, and I don't see this changing," end quote. And this is from an article dated June 21, 2023, and it was in the National Apartment Association. And Legacy Partners is a privately held real estate development and multifamily with communities throughout the United States since 1968. So again, 157 parking spots minus 150 based on this scenario, which leaves 7 parking spaces, public parking spaces, minus the handicap, which leaves 1 public parking space, minus the 46 that we can still talk about or negotiate, leaves a negative 45 public parking spaces, and we still have not addressed the restaurant. So, based on my independent analysis, and I can cite where I've gotten every single number, this is not a project that I'm comfortable with. Thank you. Thanks for picking that up. I'll just turn it around.
Any other council comments?
What are we talking about?
Everything. 1111.
You know, I've got a quick question. Developers, when you come to the city, you pay a developer donation fee. Are they paying a developer donation fee on this project? Russ?
We haven't got that point yet.
Okay. But they are going to?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, again, there'll be a redevelopment agreement that will be negotiated if
Okay.
the city council opts to move forward, and all of that kind of goes into that document, and so
Thank you.
TBD.
Alderman Glad, go ahead.
Okay. Well, Alderwoman Bassey was doing your presentation. sorry, I wasn't totally listening to every word, but I ran some numbers real quick, and that's the fact that at 157 units minus the 46 and everything else, you're looking at approximately 5 parking spaces that are created for $2 million, cost you $400,000 per unit space for the additional spacing. If you take and you build a garage at 140 and you subtract the 46, you come up with 94, and it costs you approximately $64,500 per spot. So you're gaining a hell of a lot more by taking and building a garage on your own than what it costs you as far as a net gain by building separate. Granted, the cost per space is a lot cheaper to have shared parking. That shared parking also creates a big input into the use of that parking, and not the free parking that we're actually adding up. We are going to need a parking garage. We need to invest in that, not into a separate entity, because that separate entity, let them build their own parking that they need required for their development. Why should we pay for it?
Alderman Miller, go ahead, floor is yours.
I'm going to say this just a little bit different. We currently, the city, own 0 parking at 1111 Green Street. 0. We're a 0. Under the generosity leases that are currently existing there, we have the ability to use some of those spaces. But at any given moment in time, the owner of that property could put a big red rope around it and say, no parking here, thank you very much, go away. We have 0 there. To benefit our residents and the continued development and growth in this area, we must develop parking in every concept we consider. Otherwise, we have 0. As we started this conversation hours ago, this is a C4 zoned property. Dave can go build anything he wants there as long as it's in conformity to C4. He can build anything with 0 parking.
Not anything, but
I'm glad you got the floor.
Within reason.
Within reason.
So we need to get our heads out of the sand and realize that we have 0 parking on that corner. 0. Anything we get out of this transaction, whether it's with Shodine or another developer, is a benefit to the city and at a cost that's affordable. We're at $12,738 a space. Now, I'm very respectful of your research, but the reality is the people who live there aren't going to be parked there all day. Or I hope they're not. So those are revolving doors and opportunities for other people to use those parking spaces. It would be remiss of everyone sitting at this table to not put parking in every decision we make. We have a parking crunch downtown, and if we continue to develop at the rate we see and envision, it's going to continue to be a problem. So to be short-sighted and not look at as much parking as possible, in my eyes, is a mistake. Because right now we own 0.
Except for the fact that the $2 million could be used better for public parking rather than shared parking, because why would we build parking for his development, let him build his own? If he goes to 3-1, he's building his own parking.
He's still building his own parking.
Yeah, he's still, so let's go back to that. So let's talk about his public parking, our public parking and his private parking. Let's say 57 spots, right? 57, actually, let's go 69 public. 1-to-1, 69 public, 69 at 37, 2 million. I know this doesn't look professional, but whatever. Divided by 69 is almost $29,000 a spot. The surface lots that we just did on Riverside was $25,000 a spot. We're getting parking in a space that we have zero. This is a better option, building 37,000 a spot for nearly $6 million, or $5.2 million at this point, for 140 spots. I just don't get it.
And if I can,
More need for parking. By doing this, we're creating more need for parking.
Alderman Gleb, you have been involved in these meetings since we've had Shodine involved. You know that there's other opportunities for parking. This is not the fix, but we are just going to sit stagnant, just like we did prior years. And we have an opportunity to develop and continue the growth, and once we get development into other parcels that you know about, that we could start building more parking. You know this. Alderman Davis.
I know we're talking a lot about just parking, which obviously is the hottest topic, but, so, I'm kind of looking at it from a different perspective, that this will actually generate revenue for the city in the long run, right? A parking garage, unless we're charging, does not generate revenue. Would I correct on that?
So after the TIF, you want to go ahead and say something about that?
The only revenue that we are anticipating at this point from a parking garage would be the resident overnight parking permits. And so the goal there would be not necessarily to,
No, I think, so I think what I meant is, in this case, because we technically don't own those spots, and they could go away at any time, so we are net gaining something. But the revenue that some of these, the taxes that are gonna come in, the revenue that it's gonna generate for the businesses, that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If we were to say, we don't do this, we just build a parking garage, what revenue, unless it's not public parking, we have to charge to now get revenue out of that parking garage. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Okay. That's my point. Thank you.
the only thing I would just clarify is that there's contemplation for this 1111 site to build a standalone parking garage. And again, this would be, yeah. If the city does not opt to add a public parking element, then this would go to be a purely private development.
Alderman, if I could add to your point, in essence, if you had a parking garage, a two-level parking garage on that piece of property, it would generate zero tax dollars for the municipality. As soon as you put the residential component on top of those two levels, you're going to generate a huge amount of property taxes that will pay, and the city will realize those dollars after the initial $6 million TIF is paid off. So you are correct. You're going to generate a revenue stream on that overall property with the other use on the property in addition to any parking. So ideally, if you want to generate revenue, you should put some other use on top of every parking garage.
This is going to be...
Alderman Massey.
Did you just say that we'll see revenue after the $6 million TIF is paid for, which is going to be in 23 years?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. And then just with respect to Alderwoman Miller, yes, I do understand that we don't own that, but if there is 63 spots available in the parking garage, those people that were parked out there are going to take those spots immediately.
And that's okay, because that's what we want to do. Because right now, if we do no parking and we build a building there, someone's going to build there. So if somebody just builds an apartment building there with no parking, now we have however many residents, plus visitors, plus employees, plus residents of River Place that have zero place to park. Talk about pressure on us to go build a parking lot at $30,000+ per space. And by the way, 88 spaces at $50 for 12 months generates $52,800, which is a third of the cost of the debt service. So they're paying their own 1/3 of the way of the debt service at $50, which is a minimum fee.
Alderman Cook, go ahead. You don't have the floor. You don't have the floor. Alderman Glab, go ahead. Alderman
When you build
Cook.
those public parking lot? Why can't you have it just like the hospitals have, where you grab a ticket, you go park, you spend your time in there, whether you're shopping or eating and all that. You go to drive out, you put your ticket back in there, and it charges you per for however long you were in there.
Well, I think that's the point. We're trying to get public parking and not charge for parking.
Yeah, we're trying not to charge for public parking.
That
that could be a conversation, but that's another day.
That's an option.
But I don't think that's a good option at this point.
That's the difference, yeah. So,
Well, nothing's for free. Come on. I mean, I'd be happier than hell to pay parking, for a couple hours, go down there for the, Shamrock on the Fox, and, all right, so it cost me $15 or $20 to park there, and I was able to walk right over to it and all that, and have fun and everything, and come back out. I don't know. Brookfield Zoo charges for parking, so does the baseball, I don't know. You pay for it, either way.
Again, those are all conversations that the city council would be able to have, if this public parking garage did move forward. Staff's recommendation initially, it would not be to charge for the parking, because, I think the parking garage in and of itself is a significant change for the residents in McHenry. But I would also say there's additional costs associated with having the gate system and those other things, and so that increases your operating costs on an annual basis. So you just kind of have to run the numbers and make sure that it makes sense. Thanks.
Alderman Miller?
I just want to share a recent experience in Lake Geneva. If you park on the street and you put your license plate in the meter, it's $1 an hour. I was there 3 minutes after my 2 hours of paid time, and I received a $35 over fee. I will never park on Lake Geneva land again.
Any other questions, comments by council? None? Okay. So I say we go through this one last time to give direction to staff to, the next steps at least. So, at this point, talking about the building itself and the height, we'll start off with Alderman Santee. We did not have, right? We only had 3 and 1s out.
Right.
There's been further
So there was some councilors that were on the fence. Alderman Cook being one of them.
Yeah.
Alderman Davis being one of them as far as so I'd like to just go through one last time. We don't have to have a big discussion, but go ahead, Alderman Santee.
And this is, you're asking...
The building...
Six-story.
Yep.
Six-story, yes.
Yes. Alderman Glab?
4.
You say 4? Or no? 4?
4 what?
So 3 and 1?
4 stories.
So 3 and 1, no public parking.
Yeah, well then there's no...
No, you said you didn't want that either.
Yeah.
I will not support 6 stories, period.
Okay, got it.
So you...
Yeah. Need to know. Alderman McClatchy?
2.
What's 2?
2 stores.
You guys are killing me.
No, you want the 4 and 2.
I feel...
We're heading
What is going on here?
Y'all just want parking, and that's it.
The owner of the land would not have just parking on this land. It's not what Ned Newman ever wanted, so to be clear. That's not what Shodine is looking to do,
If
so.
we spend an hour and a half, we'll get a -1.
Yeah, well, good. Sounds good. Alderman Bassi?
No on the whole thing. Doesn't matter the height.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah.
Alderman Cook?
I don't like the height, but I know we need parking. I'm glad, but I just swore. I can't go along with it.
Alderman Miller?
I'm a defined yes.
All right, so at this point, 6 stories is dead and 3 stories is dead. That's pretty much where we're at, unfortunately. So 4 years, and we come to this. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So 1%, you won't even...
No.
I mean...
Well, we don't need to talk about that this evening, because obviously the primary for that was to finance the parking garage, and if that's not something that the city council is interested in moving forward with, then we will go back to the drawing board. With that being said, I'd still like to get, I guess, some high-level feedback on the food and beverage tax concept, just in case it's something we want to contemplate for other uses in the future.
Good idea.
You want to, 1%? Yeah, where you feel on the 1%?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it, but I'm interested in like a deadline option, where we do it for 5 years, and it comes back.
Alderman Gleb?
Yes. What?
How are you?
How do you feel about a 1% food and beverage tax?
1%? Depending on what it's being used for, I'd be open.
Alderman Clatch?
If this tax has been used for the whole city, I'd be for it. McHenry, like I said before, McHenry should not be in the business of financing a developer, and so I'm a no on it.
But in concept, you don't hate the idea, it's more about the use and what the funds would be directed toward.
Oh, well, financing this developer is my main reason.
But I guess if we're looking in the future for additional revenue to finance other projects, would this be something that you would be open to?
I'd be open to anything if I saw what I was open to.
Alderman Bassey?
I would need a little more information, but if it is for the entire city, benefiting the entire city, for example, roads or parks, I would be open to it. But I would also be open to just listening to what you're proposing, as long as the whole city benefits.
Alderman Davis?
Yeah, as long as it was laid out and it doesn't affect typical groceries. Again, this is people going out and utilizing that. I think it's a better option than charging for parking and that type of stuff, so.
Put a sunset clause on it. 2 years, 3 years, whatever. And, that way everybody can, as long as it's delegated for a certain thing, I guess I have no problem. But I worry about what's going on right now. We're like at the edge of a economic collapse, maybe. And I look at, what it might hurt. So, but I am still kind of for it, I could see it going for civic projects.
Alderman Miller?
I think we tasked staff with find something new and generate some dollars that we can work with and help our general fund do a myriad of projects. And I think this was a good find. It is obviously a tax that would be only paid by people who have discretionary funds to eat out. So I think it was a creative find, and I think it's a good addition to our revenue stream. So I'm a yes.
Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda, staff reports. All those were sent out. So is there any other staff reports this evening? Hopefully not. Thank you. Mayor's report. I will just express that I'm very, I don't know. I don't even know what to say at this point. But 4 years we've been working on this. We've been looking at opportunities to expand and grow our downtown. And it's unfortunate that not every council member took the opportunity to tour with us and take all these opportunities to understand all these concerns that they had in person. So for that being said, I'm very, very disappointed in some of the council members here. So that's just all I got to say. City council comments? Alderman Glab, go ahead.
It's been no secret right from the get-go, and that's the fact with apartments, that I have a developer here that's what he wants to do, is build and lease, and therefore I did not support it, and I told you that right from the beginning. Sorry, it's no big surprise, so, cry on your own beer. But I was up front right from the beginning.
Yeah. Alderman Santi, go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure, Alderman Glab, I know you weren't for the six floor thing, but you were comfortable with the smaller one. You made that statement.
Okay.
So you're comfortable with the smaller one, the smaller complex. Okay. An apartment complex.
No, you say apartment.
Okay. Well, that's what
That's what was.
okay. That was the question. That was the question. Because it was either a six-story, four-story, and that was.
Alderman Santi, if you argue, let's
No,
argue after this. Let's not tie up everybody
Alderman
here,
Glab.
please.
No, I just wanted to make sure I understood it, because you did surprise me, because you really did surprise me. But the question that was asked was 6 and 4. Please, staff or council, correct me if I'm wrong. I just want to make sure of that.
We need
You
direction.
did surprise me. No, correct me if I'm wrong. I just wanted to make sure of that.
Sorry.
I apologize. I just wanted to make sure of that. Thank you.
Is there any other city council comments? See none, look at motion adjourned. Alderman Santi? Second, Alderman Miller?
Okay.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes.
Alderwoman Miller?
Yes.
Alderman Glab?
Yes.
Alderman McClatchy?
Yes.
Alderwoman Massey? Yes. Alderman Davis?
Yes.
Alderman Cook?
Yes.
Good night. Did you unplug me down there, sir? Thanks for helping me out. That's slick how you did that.
Meeting.